Okay, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we cordially invite you to be ready as the prescribed link Zoom as the seminar is about to begin. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Respectable Vice Dean 3 of Faculty of Humanities, Ibu Lina Purianti, PhD. Honorable Head of Magister Linguistic Program, Ibu Dr. Niwayan Sartini. Honorable Speakers, Dr. Kumawang Jati, MA from Bandung Institute of Technology. And then Christine Lewis, PhD from University of Arkansas. And Ibu Dr. Lila Musada, MPD from Universitas Airlangga. Honorable participants and all invited guests, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lila Hamida, and it is an awesome and precious chance for me today to be the master of ceremony as well as the moderator of today's seminar, English is in a globalized world, exploring the role of education and technology. First of all, I would like to welcome you all to our national seminar with the topic English is in a globalized world, exploring the role of education and technology, which is organized by Magister of Linguistic Program, Faculty of Humanities, Universitas Airlangga, Surabaya. Ladies and gentlemen, before we start our main agenda today, there will be a sequence of lineups which include the singing of national anthem, Indonesia Raya, and hymn of Airlangga. Then it would be followed by speeches by the head of the Magister of Linguistic Program and the Vice Dean 3 of Faculty of Humanities, who is going to deliver her speech as well as opening the ceremony. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, here is the national anthem and hymn of Airlangga. Okay, that would be our national anthem and the hymn of Airlangga. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, next on the agenda are speeches. The first speech will be delivered by Ibu Dr. Niwayan Sartini as the head of Magister Linguistic Program. Ibu Wayan, the time is yours.
Baik, saya akan menggunakan bahasa Indonesia saja. Jadi Kristi, I'm sorry, I will speak bahasa. Oke, selamat pagi. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, dan salam kebajikan. Yang terhormat Ibu Wakil Dekan 3 Fakultas Ilmu Budaya Universitas Airlangga yang berkenan hadir pada pagi hari ini. Bapak dan ibu-ibu pembicara, yaitu Bapak Dr. A. Gumawang Jati MA. Terima kasih Bapak sudah berkenan hadir dan sharing tentang topik yang sudah kita pilih. Kemudian terima kasih juga untuk Christine Lewis. Selamat pagi di Indonesia. Selamat malam di Amerika ya, Christine. Ya, terima kasih sudah berkenan hadir. Kemudian terima kasih kepada Ibu Lila Musada dari Fakultas Ilmu Budaya Universitas Airlangga. Pertama-tama tentu kita mengucapkan puja dan puji syukur kepada Tuhan Yang Maha Kuasa, karena pada pagi hari ini kita diberi kesempatan berkumpul bersama-sama di ruang Zoom ini dalam kesehatan yang baik, ya, karena kesehatan sekarang adalah sangat berharga, ya. Jadi bersyukur sekali kita bisa bertemu pada pagi hari ini dalam rangka seminar nasional yang kami adakan, yaitu dari Prodi Magister Ilmu Linguistik Fakultas Ilmu Budaya Universitas Airlangga. Ya, dari informasi yang saya dapatkan bahwa respon terhadap topik ini sangat luar biasa. Pendaftar itu sudah lebih dari 200 dan semoga teman-teman, Bapak Ibu yang mendaftar nanti pelan-pelan bisa mengikuti, karena sekarang jaringan itu sangat berpengaruh terhadap bisa atau tidaknya masuk teman-teman ke Zoom. Dan kami harapkan nanti dalam waktu 2 jam ke depan ini banyak teman-teman yang bisa bergabung dan berdiskusi tentang topik yang sudah kami sampaikan. Sekali lagi saya mengucapkan terima kasih kepada para pembicara, kepada seluruh peserta yang sudah hadir pada pagi hari ini, dan saya harapkan kepada pembicara Pak Jati dan Christine, mungkin ini tidak berhenti sampai di sini, mungkin kerjasama kita ke depan bisa kita lanjutkan dalam bentuk yang lain, ya, mungkin dalam karena sekarang kan istilahnya MBKM, ya, mungkin mahasiswa bisa belajar di tempat lain. Atau nanti kami ke depan bisa mengundang Bapak dan Ibu lagi ke Prodi. Itu aja yang ingin saya sampaikan. Sekali lagi terima kasih kepada pembicara, kepada peserta, dan kepada panitia atas kehadirannya dan kesempatannya untuk menghadiri acara ini. Demikian yang saya sampaikan. Mohon maaf bila ada yang tidak berkenan. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Ibu Wayan, for the warm welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, the next speech would be from our beloved Vice Dean 3 of Faculty of Humanities, Ibu Lina Purianti, PhD. Ibu Lina is going to deliver her speech as well as officially opening the seminar. Ibu Lina, the time is yours.
Thank you so much, my beloved Ibu Leli. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yes, morning all. I'm very happy to be invited to open, but actually I really also want to join all the session for this seminar because I think the topic is very interesting. Okay, the Honorable Head of my Magister Linguistic Program, Dr. Wayan Sartini, and then all the dissenters. I have to check again the name one by one. I think Dr. Christine Luis. Hi, Christine, how are you? I'm glad to meet you again, although it is still through online. And then also, I appreciate Dr. Gumawang Jati. We met years ago, and I'm very happy that we can meet again, although still on the online. And then my beloved colleague, Dr. Lila Musada. Nice to meet you. It's quite long. We never met offline, although we are at the same campus. Okay, and also for all the participants of this seminar. On behalf of the Dean of the Faculty of Humanities, I gladly appreciate and welcome the seminar, this national seminar. As it is known that the campus should be an institution that accommodate as well as accelerate the newest current issues and methodology on certain discipline. Yeah? And in this way, of course, this institution should be elaborate all aspects of knowledge production. Therefore, the routine activities or discussion should be well programmed, and what this Magister Linguist program do in this morning. That's why I really appreciate it, and hopefully that it can be kind of a routine activities on the department. Ladies and gentlemen, as it is mentioned by Dr. Wayan, that actually our campus now is not only busy with the activity of teaching and learning, but we are now should be joined in the national program of MBKM, in which that the students also should explore to the many institutions outside of the campus. That's why then we really support all the activities that enable our students to be exposed. I mean that it means that the institution, I mean that the campus should have a good collaboration with other institutions. That's why then we do hope that Christine and then Dr. Christine and then also Dr. Gumawang Jati are willing to be part of our joint institution in various programs. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think that we can start this activity this morning. I do hope that everything will run well, and officially I open this seminar. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Ibu Lina, for being here with us and also officially opening the seminar. We really appreciate your presence on behalf of our Dean. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we will now start our main agenda, the National Seminar on English in a Globalized World, exploring the role of education and technology. Now, there will be 3 speakers talking about the topic. And before I invite the speakers to deliver their presentation, I would briefly read their biography so that all of you would be informed and know well of their expertise. First of all, Dr. Gumawang Jati. He is a senior English lecturer and teacher trainer. His home base is actually in Bandung Institute of Technology. he focused on English language teaching, teacher training, and digital material development and ICT in education. Currently, he is the president of ITEL, Indonesia Technology Enhanced Language Learning Association. So everybody, ladies and gentlemen, if you are interested in knowing and understanding more about how technology could assist us in language learning and teaching, I suggest, yeah, that you could join ITEL, which is led by Pak Kumawang Jati. Okay, and then secondly, we have Christine Louise, PhD. She is focusing her work on teaching English to speakers of other languages and applied linguistics. She has been to many Asian countries to train teachers of English, as well as volunteering to teach English with new method and a lot of collaboration. One of her work are about word Englishes and global communication. And then the third speaker, Dr. Lila Musada. She is focusing her work and teaching on second language acquisition, teaching English as a foreign language, English semantic pragmatics, and applied linguistics. Some of her current publications are about exploring local wisdom in students' writing, reflecting high order thinking. Okay, I think that would be all, a brief biography about the three speakers. And without further ado, I would like to invite the excellency speakers of today's seminar to present their ideas. And it would be started with Dr. Kumawang Jati from Bandung Institute of Technology with the topic Learning Spaces in a Globalized World. Pak Jati, the floor is yours.
Oke, terima kasih Ibu Laili. Terima kasih Bu Lila sudah mengajak saya. I think terima kasih juga untuk Ibu Wayan and everyone. I've been part of Unair actually long ago. I visited there, and this is my second chance to speak. Last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago, I speak with the S1 students talking about AI, artificial intelligence for learning.
Yes, with the English department, Pak.
With the English department, yeah. Today I'm going to talk slightly different. It's more general, and let me start with sharing my screen. I'm going to use English and Bahasa Indonesia, so I might slip here and there. So, Christy, if you got problem, then hopefully you still got the gist of that thing. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to talk about learning spaces in a globalized world because my interest is on the ICT. So it's not only about the tools, but also we have to be aware about the spaces where learning happens. We'll start with the agenda. It's only 2, so I'm expecting a lot of discussion later. Learning spaces and type of interaction, with mentioning some tools that we can use and utilize, and what happened and what should we be aware. A big question is that the old learning spaces are still important, or what's the new learning spaces that we have right now that we can explore? So we're going to discuss that area as well, and also the interaction, because the interaction is slightly different and it's developing. Okay, it's going to be a little bit of interactive. I would like you to go to menti.com, and this is the code. Yeah. Menti.com, can you go to, with your mobile or your laptop? This is the code. 54726 Kita coba pemanasan dulu sedikit. Ya. Okay, if you go there, then the best place for studying. Yeah. Then you have to input what you think about the best place for studying. So you have to go to menti.com, the code 54726 Okay, silahkan. Yeah, I'll type the in the chat box. So you have to go to menti.com, and this is the code 54726 I put it in the chat box. Yeah. For the 6 participants in that. Thank you. So best place for studying, some mention library, bedroom, home, nature, campus, garden, cafe. That's interesting. Yeah. School, okay, room, okay. Library. A lot of people vote for library and bedroom and home. That's interesting. If I go to my bedroom, then I sleep. Pasti langsung tertidur. Home, then I'll go to the kitchen and start cooking, not studying. That's for me. Okay, so that's the best place for studying. Still library and bedroom. That's popular. Some mention nature, garden, and cafe. Yeah, usually students, they like to study in a coffee shop right now. Okay, so that's interesting. None of you mentioned, oh yeah, some actually mentioned classroom. 1 or 2 mentioned online. So it's considered online is similar to a place. Okay, private room, study room. Good. So today we're going to look at places for studying and the space that we need for studying. And also we're going to discuss about the how. Yeah, so around that issue in a very short of time. Yeah. Okay, during my talk, if you have any questions, you can always put that in the chat. Yeah, just write that in the chat box. If you wait until the end, usually you forget, but that's okay. Yeah. Now, thank you for participating. So still bedroom is very popular. Home is very popular. Yeah, bedroom is yeah. Kan sekarang ada istilah mahasiswa apa rebahan atau apa itu generasi rebahan. Kalau saya nggak salah ya. So you just informal lying in bed and do your reading. Yeah, whether it's effective or not, that's another issue. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for participating. Let's go to our bedroom. Now, when we look at 3 decades ago, then learning space considered to be a good learning space is classroom. So every education, every institution, they pay attention to the classroom. Decorate the classroom, put air conditioning in the classroom, got a good chair in the classroom with LCD and so on. So classroom, it's become the focus for learning. And most of the higher education and most of the schools. Yeah. Then other spaces that you mentioned earlier is also the library. Yeah, when I saw the promo about Unair, then mentioned about the library as well. Yeah, you got a good library. So good classroom, comfortable classroom, complete library that's become space for learning in the past, and also maybe faculty office for individual consultation and so on. Yeah, if you're in the school, it's a ruang guru that you can talk to the teachers there, or perhaps cafe in town. Yeah, coffee shop has become popular and booming, and a lot of people spending time to study there or do something or work or learn. Yeah, okay. So classroom were, or maybe still are in a lot of areas, the most important space for learning, or consider the most important space for learning. Yeah. Okay, now let's look at the speed of the technology and the invention of internet that changed everything. Yeah. Now, my next questions, let's use the chat room, chat box. Where are the most important space for learning after the classroom? Yeah. Where is, or where are, maybe it's more than one, important spaces for learning after classroom? Uleli, thank you, online. Interesting. Virtual space, Pak Tobias, good. Bedroom. Pak Tansil, thank you. Ibu Yunita, online. Okay, so classroom and online. Yeah. Video conference, Ibu Normala, thank you. Video conference also important space. YouTube, that's interesting. YouTube could be, yeah. Some people said that YouTube is a place for distract or become a distractor, but some good place for learning. Itu debatable juga. Okay, Google just like a magical place. Okay, thank you, Pak Arsa. Yeah, so if you ask facilities, nature, Pak Muji, thank you, for learning after the classroom, then some of you mentioned online. Yeah. Now let's have a look at that in detail. So the rapid development of internet, that's why you answer online, I think, artificial intelligence or AI, virtual reality, if you want to go to London or you want to go to University of Arkansas, you can use virtual reality, just wear your Google on that, then you can get the VR, like 3D VR. Go to YouTube and then you will find places of interest. You do not need a passport or whatever to go there, just to see, not to interact, of course. Yeah, and augmented reality, that changed the world. Meaning, that's changed our classes setting. Meaning, that's changed the way we learn. It's changed the way we interact. Yeah, so physical space, like classroom, that will go alongside with virtual space. That's the same in business. Toko konvensional akan berdampingan dengan toko online. Kampus konvensional, or your campus, your physical, will go in hand alongside with the virtual. Pertanyaannya, do you have a virtual space for learning for your student? Artinya, LMS-nya seperti apa? Dosennya berinteraksi di dunia maya tidak? Menyapa mahasiswanya pakai alat-alat yang interact with the students using a virtual or online atau tidak? Or, ya sudah, if you want to study in Unair, for example, then you just go and face-to-face, and there is no parallel things dealing with the learning, dealing with the interaction. Keluhan banyak dari dosen juga, waduh, I have to meet my student on campus and give tutorial and so on, and yet I have to answer a lot of emails. answer a lot of WA, answers a lot of chit-chat here and there. Tentu saja, suka tidak suka, mau tidak mau, ada paradigma yang berubah. How should we stand on that? Ya, pelan-pelan pasti harus diatur, terus ada aturannya gitu. Untuk sementara pasti kampus belum kepikiran nih, how you should contact your lecturer outside the working hours and things like that. There's norm, belum ada aturan yang baku. Ya. That's just an example to give illustrations that this development of internet and AI will change the way we teach, the way we behave, and so on. Yeah. So that's the learning spaces there. So virtual space is an entirely new environment for some people, like me, my generation, with gray hair like this. It's a new space I have to learn. Yeah, virtual space is any location where we can meet using network digital devices. So if you have a school or you have a campus, then in your school there is no network, ya mungkin akan menjadi pertanyaan besar. Gitu. Sekolahnya nggak punya network atau kampusnya nggak punya network, ya itu sudah menjadi consideran. So if you going to work, then you will ask whether where you work is there any network provided from the company, and so on and so on. Yeah. So in another word, virtual learning space, it's there. Yeah. We have to be aware about that. If you don't have that, or your school or your campus don't provide virtual learning space, then become a big question. Yeah, whether it's going to be popular or not, and so on. Will you get a lot of students and so on? Because people start believe and virtual learning space is important to be present in formal and informal institution. Yeah. Now, let's talk a little bit about how we interact or interaction in a virtual space for learning. Type of interaction, it's put simply just like this, interaction with learning materials. It's called cognitive presence, yeah, and everyone knows that. Then interaction with the teachers and interaction with friends, and learning happen. Very simple. This is happening in face-to-face. When the students, imagine when the students go to school, they will bring books. There is a library in there. They can interact with the material at any time. At the same time, the teacher is there giving instruction. So they 5 minutes, for example, interact with the teachers. Yeah. Then the teachers will instruct, okay, let's open the book, blah, 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 blah. So they interact with learning materials. After they interact with learning materials, then, okay, let's have a good discussion, meaning interaction with friends. So that's learning happen. Now, when we think about the online learning, what happened in last 2 years during the pandemic, the problem that we have, because we are not really prepared for this pandemic, on this online, then we have problem in this area, interaction with friends. How to make the discussion happen, breakout rooms, and so on and so on. Most of the time could be interaction with learning materials only, or learning materials and interaction with the teachers. But rarely we provide space in this. Yeah, interaction between friends. I'm not saying that's impossible. It's possible, but a lot of teachers complaining about this. Okay, now let's have a look at the interaction with the learning materials. Interaction with the learning materials, there are a lot of online texts. You can use that, websites, images, blog, digital books. Then you can also provide the material in the form of video or audio. Yeah. So that's the interaction with the materials. Or you can create a quiz with quizzes.com. How many of you familiar with quizzes.com? Yes or no? Can you respond in the chat box? Dicoba saja di chat box. Sudah kenal dengan quizzes.com atau belum? Harusnya sudah. Sangat populer ya, sudah ya. Oke, thank you. Kalau belum, bisa googling sih. Ya, Christy, no, you do not need that there, Christy, probably. Yeah, quizzes.com is very popular. You need to log in and so on and so on. Yeah. How many of you familiar with learningapps.org? Can you respond in the chat box, please? Admin, no. Okay, belum. Terus yang lain? Not yet, not yet, not yet. I haven't, but okay. I'm going to go to give that overview very quick. Then you can explore it on your own later, because this is a very handy apps that you create your own apps for your students. And the students doesn't need to log in, doesn't need to have an account. Bedanya dengan quizzes, kalau quizzes dia harus punya akun, kalau learning apps tidak. You do not, mahasiswanya atau siswanya enak, nggak usah punya akun-akun, nggak usah login, and so on. Yeah, I'm going to give you an overview because this is not only for English. It's an open platform. It's an open or empty, what you call it, authoring package that you can create your own apps. Later you create your own. I'm just going to give you an overview. I got the account. If you have an account, you go to register to a new account. Tapi nanti saja ya, saya tunjukkan saja kemampuannya. I log in already, then I can browse apps. The categories, there are so many. Chemistry, engineering, English, environment, you name it. Yeah, and start from elementary, this one, to higher education. There. Yeah, so they got different, and it's free. It's a place for sharing materials and so on. It's good for self-study. It's good for reinforcement. Okay, so you can browse app. You can also create apps. Yeah. So you create your own application. What you need is an idea. Then they provide the template. Then you fill in your ideas in the template. Then you can share it with your student. As simple as that. Yeah, it's good for math. It's good for bahasa Indonesia. Bisa untuk bahasa apa saja. Bisa untuk pelajaran-pelajaran yang lain. Yeah. For example, if I'm going to create apps with matching pairs, for example. Yeah. So I click that matching pair and then give me some example of matching pairs. Ada yang contohnya jelek, ada yang contohnya bagus, ada yang so they give you ideas what exercise can you create with that. Then kalau sudah tinggal aja klik create. So you create and then you follow the step. Saya nggak akan go through, tapi make sense, semua sangat mudah. Apps title, task description, then put the image that you're going to use, place the marker, and then after that finish editing, and that's become an exercise so that the students can interact with the material that you just given. That's the idea. Yeah, learningapps.org. Later, if you have a problem, you can go to Google for tutorial. Yeah. Okay, that's learning app. Try it, and it's handy. Okay. Okay, Pak Tobias, yes, you will get the my slide soon later. Yeah, no need to worry, Pak Tobias. Thank you. Now, interaction with the teacher. Nah, ini sudah banyak. Ya, pastinya sudah terbiasa dengan Zoom, terbiasa dengan Google Meet, or Microsoft Teams. Yeah, so it's video. The question is, how about in the middle of Kalimantan? How will you interact with your students? Is it possible? Yes. When there is a network device, of course. But they can use also WhatsApp group, Telegram group. A lot of teachers in the remote area, they use that to replace Zoom. It's not easy, but it's possible. Yeah, using voice chat, using text chat, and so on. Or you can have a recorded audio or video and delay, asynchronous. That's the difference between face-to-face and digital. Back to here, online text images. When you have a classroom, then real time, this one can be delayed, synchronous as asynchronous as well. If you have it online video, online lecture, it should be synchronous and asynchronous. Yeah. Okay, that's interaction with teachers. Yeah, there are a lot of ways. So, for example, giving instruction using WhatsApp. Then when you create material using learning apps, you give the link in a WhatsApp, then the students will do it. Terus pertanyaannya, tapi kan nggak tahu Pak anaknya ngerjain atau tidak. Ya, itu salah satu masalahnya. Ya, that's always the case with the online. You cannot really control your students. The students got the freedom. That's the art. So that how to make the exercise attractive for the students. Ya, itu kuncinya. Tapi tidak bisa memaksa seperti di dalam kelas. Awas lo kerjain, kalau enggak naik kelas gitu kan. Tidak bisa ada ancaman-ancaman ya. Okay, that's the video. So the interaction can happen at any time, at any location, as long as there is network and there is a device to access the materials. Yeah. How about interaction with friends? Ini yang selalu keluhan. Ya, nanti kita akan praktek sedikit interaksi. What you need is a digital discussion, digital board, collaboration board, like Google Docs. You can use that for collaboration, for them to talk to each other, but you cannot control, so you are not sure whether that's happening or not. Discussion forum, in every LMS, there's always discussion forum. Keluhannya adalah diskusinya menjadi mati. Satu arah saja. Kalau sudah ngerjakan tugas di discussion forum, ya sudah. Because they have to log in, they feel like discussion inside the classroom. Padahal pengennya diskusinya ya bebas aja gitu kan, dosennya, but that's not happening. This is the same in my class. When I asked them to use a discussion forum in the learning management system, then nobody really participate that. They answer my question, that's it. Now, there's another platform that you might try, Padlet. How many of you familiar with Padlet? Can you respond in the chat box, please? Yes or no? Sudah kenal sama Padlet atau belum? Yes, okay. No, okay. Lisa, yes. Christine, yes. Belum. No, yes. Okay, no and yes. Okay, saya akan kenalkan sedikit banget. It's a discussion board. It's a digital board. Yeah, it's free. If you got 3 board for free, but in that board you can use a lot of things. You can do discussion. You can have respond from the student. Anyone with the link, they can make comment. Ya, intinya itu. It's very flexible, perlu direnungkan dulu. It's not only a place for students to submit their work, but for them to look at each other's works and communicate. Yeah, I'm going to show you just to give you ideas Then if you like it, then you can go to Padlet. Yeah. For example, I can put section like this. Please write your comment, the power of Padlet. Then give test, then give this. Yeah. Okay, let me change. You can also change the layout. I'm going to change that because I don't like it scrolling down. Then I can change the format. I want the format into grid, for example. Yeah, so I can change the format. What I can put in here, I can put pictures, then student can put comment there. Merindukan masa luring, hehehe, ya, kangen kelas offline and selfie bareng. Then they can put comment there. So it's like a board that free for a discussion, can be formal, can be informal. It very much depends on what you put in there. For example, I give a funny video here about serba-serbi ITB. Then they can give comment in there. So anything you can put it there. Video, audio, pictures, and so on. And the response, they have to respond, click plus. The response can be in the format of photo, you can take picture, document, you can post here in the Padlet like video recorder, you can record your voice to respond to that if you don't want to write. Yeah, there are many options. Explore that, and it can be a very powerful tool because the student doesn't need to log in. If you don't have the address, if you don't have the account, that's fine. Kalau mahasiswa harus punya setiap apps harus login, itu ngeselin. Apalagi dosennya banyak. Di quizzes harus login, nanti di LMS harus login, nanti di mana lagi harus login, ini harus login, terus berapa login yang dia perlukan, itu yang harus kita pikirkan. Ya, we have to consider that, and then the students might forget the password as well. Yeah, so careful with the apps that students require to log in. Is it really necessary? Think about that. Yeah. Hopefully that will give you help with that. Yeah, thank you Pak Yuryanto. Kalau membuat hidup mahasiswa susah, kasihan mahasiswa ya. Okay, let's move on that. Yeah, let's try to have some interaction. Okay, now talk about food. Let's talk about food. Then I want you to go to here. Look at the picture. 3 words related to these pictures. Go to this link. I'm going to type this link in a chat box. Just give me a second. Let me put that in a chat box. Then I put it in chat box. Then you click that and write your 3 words. 1 word at a time. Yeah. You do not need to have an account. Just click that and answer or type the keywords that I asked you to do. Okay. Three words about the picture, 1 at a time. Let's see. Disgusting, okay. Oh no, okay. Yeah, this is an example of board for brainstorming. What's good about Answer Garden? The teacher doesn't need to log in, to have account. Jadi dosennya juga nggak perlu account, siswanya nggak perlu account. You can create this kind of board very quickly. This is for interaction. Yeah. Kita lihat baru satu yang masuk. Kita lihat lagi, coba. I have to refresh. Oh ya, sudah banyak. So you can create this interaction with your students to create a word cloud. Yeah. So for students saying disgusting and unhealthy. Yeah. Can you use this for face-to-face interaction? Yes. Saya pakai di sebelum pandemi dulu di kelasnya asik karena the students who are very shy, then they can think and take time and answer the question. And they are more engaged. Jadi nanti bisa juga untuk face-to-face. Take out your mobile phone and dibagikan linknya. Yeah. How to create that? You just go to Answer Garden CH. Ya, you do not need to log in karena tidak ada tempat untuk login. You just click plus. Saya kasih contoh sebentar saja. And you click plus, then you fill in this topic require this one. This is good for words only karena they need only maximum only 40 characters. Jadi tidak bisa jawabannya yang kalimat. Ya, this is good for brainstorming at the beginning of the lesson. Yeah, so think about that and fill in the rest, and then 1 week, and then you create sudah jadi very quick. Yeah. It's good for you to concentrate not on the application, but concentrate on what are you going to discuss with your student. Jadi kalau nanti pilih apps, jangan pilih apps yang flashy, yang ribet gitu, nggak usah. Cari yang friendly so that you can do the interaction with the students. Okay, that's answergarden.ch. You can explore later on. Now, mood for food. Now, I want you to go to this one. I'm going to put that in the chat box. Now, let me check. Let's do some interaction. Again, here you do not need, as a students or participants, you do not need to log in or to have an account. Can you click that and do the discussion? Okay, move for food. Okay, so you'll see things like this. Then pro and cons, add argument. Try to click that and then respond on that. Yeah. Will you eat this? Why or why not? Oke, dicoba dulu. Saya tunggu mungkin ada 2 atau 3 yang sudah mencoba. Then we discuss about that. Let's see how you feel during the discussion. Semoga tidak terlalu berat. Yeah, Bu Leili, you can vote, you can type on the add argument as well. Yeah. You can add idea actually. Yes, because I can seterusnya. Okay, thank you. So it's also a choice pro and cons. Kalau saya mahasiswa saya suruh nulis namanya. Bisa juga kalau mau anonymous boleh. Ya, so you can have that. Okay, sambil kita melihat boardnya, mungkin saya sambil ngoceh ya. Now, the students can do pro and cons here. They can do votings. The students diminta sign in tuh Pak? Harusnya tidak sign in. Kalau sign in nanti namanya langsung muncul, tapi kalau langsung pro and cons, umpamanya klik plus, harusnya tidak perlu, langsung klik saja, tidak perlu. Add argument, gitu kan? Terus nanti nama, terus ininya kosong, menjadi anonim. Kalau diisi nanti namanya muncul yang bawah. Ya. Waktu mau save diminta sign in. Ya, tapi bisa tidak harus sign in. Ya. Oke. So you can click pro and cons about a picture here. Apakah di sini harus gambar? Tidak. You can have picture, you can have link to YouTube, you can have text, yeah. And the students can add idea. So who add idea is not only the teacher. For example, if you have a project with your students and they produce a video, terus diupload di YouTube, gitu kan? Terus suruh saling komen-komenan, gitu kan? Mungkin lebih baik link YouTube-nya ditaruh di three-sided, put it here, so that the students at the group can say yes, agree, can say disagree, like, dislike, make comment, and so on and so on. Yeah. Or here, I put a mood for food. You give another topic, controversial topics, and then the students can add ideas what to discuss, and so on. So this is very flexible. And then you can have voting as well. Which one is the most popular? For example, if you're going to have a voting with your students. So there are a lot of things that you can do with three-sided. Yeah. The advantages of the three-sided, again, the student doesn't need to have an account. Only the teacher should have an account. And it's not difficult to have an account in a three-sided. Yeah. Then you can change here also the life of this calling. Yeah, I tried this with my Facebook account, and I open it, and people contribute, and it's okay. Yeah, so try it with your student. It's a discussion, pro and cons, longer sentences. The students can add idea to be discussed. The students can respond here, so it's very useful and very flexible. Yeah, think about that. Okay, that's a discussion. Yeah, can be synchronous, can be asynchronous. It's very much depends on the learning objective. But you provide again a space for discussion, low bandwidth. Ya, tidak harus pakai Zoom, tidak harus pakai breakout room, and a little bit flexible. They can embed a lot of things, pictures, voice, link to YouTube, and so on and so on. So you can explore that one as an alternative of learning space in a discussion forum in the LMS. Ya, nanti boleh dibandingkan. So I introduce to you Padlet yang sudah banyak diminatin juga. And also this one. Which one is better? It's very much depends on the learning objective. And then you have to try it. Yeah. So you go to threesided.com and then follow very intuitive, like you registering and having an email address. Yeah. Not complicated at all. Okay. Now, when we look at three-sided, and we look at Answer Garden, what type of interaction did we have? Interaksi kita sebetulnya kayak apa sih? Interaction with the material, interaction with the teacher, atau interaction with the friend? Kan tadi ada 3 model interaksi. Interaksinya ke yang mana kira-kira? With the materials, with the teacher, how about teacher presence, and with each other, with the students. Can you respond in the chat box, please? Silahkan. Kira-kira yang mana? With friend, ya pasti dengan friend. All, Louis, all, semua. Bahasanya bagus, Christine. Oke, semua. Good. So, Pak Tobias, thank you all. Yeah. So Padlet, an example of Tristider, example of answer garden, that's interact with material, yes. Interact with the teacher, yes. Feelings that the friend around, yes. Of course, it's not like having a friend inside the class, but you feeling you are not alone. I'm here. My friend posting this, that kind of sense. Yeah. So that's a type of interaction in a space digital, masih bisa dilakukan, masih bisa dibuat, masih bisa kita usahakan. Ya. And then how about the learning management system inside the campus? Betul ada di sana, but that's sangat kaku. Like you're asking your students to do a discussion inside the classroom, and you are there. Yeah, and it's formal and things like that. So the space is similar, but give a different sense. Yeah. Okay. Now another issue about technology and education. Most technology tools were created for business. Answer Garden, Trisider is not only for education. It's for business. Jadi kalau dulu mau launch produk apa untuk debat-debatan dan segala macam, so that everything documented, they use business people, they use Trisider. Yeah. Then for pleasure, for entertainment, a lot of games and so on. Yeah. Very rarely that technology were invented with education in their mind. Ya, itu kata Lila. So the text tool become useful is in the hand of a good teacher with a good pedagogy. Terus pertanyaannya, is it pedagogy first? Belajar pedagogi dulu atau teknologi dulu? You can do it both. Kalau saya menyarankan, you explore the technology first. Exploring that will give another angle. Gitu. Yeah, so explore the tools and then start thinking, how should I use this in my class? Which interaction, which learning space I'm going to use? So you have to think about that. Ya, toolsnya pasti banyak. Ada quizzes, ada banyak sekali tools, but you have to think like which interaction happening in there. Is it only interacting with the materials? Kalau hanya dengan materi saja, ya nggak bagus. Kalau hanya with the teacher, it's not good. Ya, how about with the students and students interaction? Jadi kalau bermain-main dengan teks tool, dipikirkan ini interaksinya satu doang, dua atau tiga. Which website is most useful for discussion in which participants should write several sentences? Use Padlet, Pak. Several sentences for free Padlet. If you use Trisider, it's good for pro and cons, controversial issues. Itu bagus banget untuk di Trisider. Yeah. But the discussion, general discussion, I use Padlet a lot. Padlet limited for 3 only when the one for free, tapi itu bisa di-download. Jadi tetap bisa didokumentasikan. You download into PDF, terus dihapus. Kayak papan tulis saja. Itu Pak Yuryanto. Setelah dihapus, pakai lagi. Ya, of course, then if you use video and so on, nggak bisa terdownload. Ya, tapi kalau that's only sentences or paragraph, saya biasanya kalau nulis sampai paragraph, ask my student to post a paragraph in the Padlet, then they comment to one another in the Padlet. Ya. Okay, that's from Pak Yuryanto. How do you create all the interaction? I don't create the interaction. I just watch. I'm treating like watching my student doing a discussion. I don't take the grade. I'm concentrating more on the discussion and make sure that learning happen. When the learning is not happen there, then I might switch to find or to think other techniques to do that. To create all interaction efficiently, is there any particular tool to use it? Particular tools to measure interaction? I haven't seen any. Ya, itu Ibu Adriani from Unsrat, from Manado, very far away. Thank you for coming, Ibu. Yeah, then interaction in online right now, like I mentioned earlier, can be synchronous. Kalau sebelum ada internet, interaksi pikirnya selalu synchronous, gitu ya. But now there are a lot of asynchronous interaction. In the past, before the internet, we can have asynchronous interaction as well, but take times using letters, using postcard, and so on. Yeah. Right now, asynchronous, it's very easy and very cheap. Then the interaction can be voice, can be text, can be a video. Yeah. But the difference with the zaman Majapahit adalah kalau zaman Majapahit itu interaksi harus sinkronus. Yeah. A lot of benefit right now with asynchronous interaction because let people think for the good response on that. Yeah. Another key for that is anywhere, as long as there is a network and as long as there is a device to do the interaction. So you need tools to have an interaction. Some people are comfortable with interaction in online, some are not. Yeah, some still learning like me, how to interact, how to make use of the learning space, and so on and so on. Yeah. Okay, that's the learning space. It's not the classroom, it's not the cafe, it's not the library, but now we have a new one. It's a learning space. You can learn globally, anywhere, at any time, as long as there is a network and device on that. Yeah. If you're interested in reading a light book about teknologi dan pembelajaran bahasa Inggris, boleh, silakan. It's free. Yeah, it's in Google Books. Nanti di download gratis. You go to itel.org.id/itel-book. Ya, difoto saja. Kalau sudah difoto nanti bisa ke sana. If you have any problem in downloading the book, let me know. Ya, gratis. Itu seri 1. Seri 2, hopefully next year will become another book coming out. Not very theoretical. Ini teman-teman ITEL board menulis berdasarkan pengalaman waktu memberikan training. Jadi ada digital story, ada artificial intelligence insight, ada how to give a good feedback, yang gitu-gitu ya, yang you can yang bisa langsung diimplementasikan di kelas. Ya. Okay, that's my email, kumawang.jati@gmail.com. Feel free to email me if you want to. Email selalu saya balas. Ya, silahkan. Ganggu hidup saya, maka saya akan belajar. Kira-kira gitu. If you are a technology freak, you can join the discussion that we have in Telegram group. It's called bit.ly/telegramitel. Kalau ingin difoto saja juga, kalau ingin slide saya, you can go to bit.ly/unair-s2. Itu nanti bisa mendapatkan semua materi dan linknya hidup di situ, so you can have a look at that again. Yeah. So this is an example of interaction and sharing material with you. Saya tidak perlu download, tidak perlu kirim, dan segala macam. Everything is online. You can click, then you can follow my slide. Okay, thank you very much. Then I give back to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Jati, for very enlightening presentation. So I guess a lot of people have inspired by your presentation today. And I hope our relationship and interaction would be all continued with all the links that Pak Jati has shared. So in sum, everyone, Pak Jati suggested that there are now alternative spaces for English learning, starting from the physical space, but now transformed to virtual spaces. And it changes, of course, the interaction during learning, cognitively as well as socially. And nevertheless, the virtual space here provide us with so many chances to challenge ourselves with abundance of learning materials and teaching learning application. And in this case, of course, teachers are challenged to think of a way to make classroom interesting and interaction could go smoothly. Thank you, Pak Jati. Ladies and gentlemen, now we come to the second speaker, Ibu Christine Lewis, PhD, who is going to talk about, wait a minute. The production and perception in English as a lingua franca. Ibu Christy, please, time is yours.
Thank you. I'm going to do a little navigating first to make sure I get this correct, because I would like to see my audience, if I can. There we go, that's a little better. And now, try to share. I'm not as talented as Pak Jati with my technology. I'm a little jealous, but I'll be there in just a second. Can everyone see my screen? Does everyone see a screen?
Yes, we can see it fine.
Great.
Christine.
Great. And now I would like to see you. Let me get my screen bigger. Sorry, trying to do 2 screens at one time because I want to see your screen. Okay, here we go. Today I'm going to talk to you about production and perception in English as a lingua franca. And we're going to do a little introduction first to who I am, and then a little true false activity. We're going to talk about English today, and then we'll learn what English as a lingua franca is in case you don't know. And then we'll move into actual perception and production being compared. And I'll end with questions for you to ask yourself. I think I prefer most questions to come at the end because you might get an answer to something that you have a question for later. So if you have questions, you can go ahead and put them in the chat, but I probably won't respond to them until the end. Just a little warning there. So just a little reminder who I am. I am not a doctor yet. I'm honored to hear it. I'm like, oh, one day, but I am still in the process. But I've already spent a long time on it, and I do have my data finished, and I have all those results, but still not officially done. And I have been doing my PhD in linguistics from the University of Brunei Darussalam, and my research will be shared a little bit today. But what I'm currently doing, I just transitioned back to the States, and I'm an English instructor at a language center at the University of Arkansas. I do have my master's from San Francisco State, and I have been teaching for over 20 years. And as you know, I was at Unair for a little while, for 1 year as an English language fellow. So it's kind of fun. And this picture of me here is back in the day. And it was actually in Bandung. I did a radio show during that same year that I was in Surabaya. A little radio show on English. So that reminds me of my little batik shirt back in a long, long time ago, it feels like. Anyway, I'm very glad to be here. Are we okay? Can everyone hear me and everything? Is everything okay with that?
Yeah, everything is clear.
Okay, great.
Yeah, thank you.
So we're going to continue then. You should be able to respond on Zoom with like a thumbs up, or I think there's a thumbs down as well. So I just want to get a feel for what you already know or what you think. So can you tell me if you've ever even heard of English as a lingua franca? If you have, can you give me a thumbs up, please? If you have, nobody? I got one. Couple of you guys. All right. All right. And then here's another question I'd like you to think about. Indonesians, do you learn English mainly to speak to a native speaker? Is that who you think that you'll be speaking English to? If so, thumbs up. If you think that you're going to be speaking English with a native speaker, is why you're learning English. No thumbs up here. Okay, that's good. And are most tourists and other people from other countries that come to Indonesia, are they all native speakers? Thumbs up if it's true. I'm not seeing thumbs up. All right, I got a couple more questions, hang on. How many of you think that all native speakers of English understand one another? Okay, not true. I see one, not true. I'll go ahead and speak to this one. When I was doing my PhD, I had a British supervisor and I'm American. And we had so many times that we misunderstood one another. It was crazy. We were always like, do you really say that? Do you really talk like that? What did you just say? We were always saying that. So it is true that native speakers don't even always understand each other. Okay. If you think it's true that it's more important that a native speaker understand my English than someone from the ASEAN. It's more important that a native speaker understand you than an ASEAN speaker. Thumbs up. Okay, I got one. All right. And then I have here, I just want to know if you think that your goals for production, like speaking and writing, are the same as your goals for perception, like listening and reading. Are those goals when you're studying or learning or teaching, if you're a teacher, are those the same? Are they the same kind of goals? If so, thumbs up. Okay, got one. All right. Well, these are some things that are good for me to know as we progress. What we're going to talk about is English as a lingua franca, but to talk about that, we need to first talk about just English today. Okay. So this is something from 1985, before some of these students here were ever born. And I've got three numbers, sets of numbers here on the right, top right. I would like to know what you think is the number. I can't see my chat though. I wanted to see my chat. Can I make it so good? There we go. Now I can see my chat. All right. So I would like to know, well, first of all, do you even know what inner circle, outer circle, and expanding circle are? Yes or no? Anybody know? Ever heard of it? No, ma'am, no, ma'am, no. Okay, so let me just give you a little general idea. Inner circle would be me. I come from a country where I grew up learning English, and so I am considered inner circle. All right, and outer circle would be countries that were colonized by an English-speaking country. So they had English brought in and they were kind of forced to learn it at some point. And then expanding circle would be everybody else who's got English, but they weren't forced to learn it. It's kind of by choice. They're just choosing to learn English. So with those in mind, which number do you think is the inner circle number? How many people do you think are speaking English in the inner circle, like as a native speaker? Which number would you say? You can write it in the chat. Out of the 300 million, 380 million versus the 1,000 million, which is a crazy number. So I've got the 300, 300. Okay, a lot of 300s. All right, you guys are good. That is correct. Oh, no, not correct. Sorry. I don't even know my own information. All right, 380 is about the inner circle, 380 million. So that leaves either 300 million for the outer circle or 1,000. Which one do you think it is? For the outer circle, so people who were colonized by English speakers. Which one do you think? I'll go ahead and let you know. The 380 is actually the US, if you can see that. So that leaves it 300 million for countries that are outer circle. In ASEAN, those countries would be Brunei, the Philippines, Malaysia, and Singapore. These countries were colonized, and so they have English exposure. And then that leaves the last group as everybody else, which was you guys, this large group. Now, if you compare these two numbers from between the outer circle and the expanding circle, there are a lot more speakers in the world of English who are not this inner circle speaker group. There are a lot of people who speak English that are not from this native speaker world. And so we'll just look a little bit more at the facts about English today. Around the world, there are 75 territories that have English as their, around 75 territories that have English as an official language. Maybe not the only language, but one of their official languages. I don't know if you know that ASEAN has claimed English as their language of functioning. So ASEAN says we're going to function with English. Okay, and then when people travel, if you travel to Cambodia, you travel to Thailand, are you going to be using your Malay or Bahasa Indonesian? Probably not. You're probably going to use English. So when you're traveling, this is English as well. And when people come to Indonesia from all over the world, they're going to be using English. And then, of course, you already know that there's English in sciences and academic publications and sports and, of course, entertainment. And then a lot of things online, your Twitters and your social medias and all of that, that's in English. And that's not necessarily involving a native speaker. In all of these situations, there's probably not a native speaker hanging out in the ASEAN meetings. And in these territories, there's probably not a native speaker in all of these territories. And then when we're traveling, you've got a lot of people traveling who are not considered native speakers, and they're traveling around, they're using English. So this is where we want to get the fact and the idea in people's minds that English is not being learned all the time for talking to a native speaker. Like, that is not the goal. The big goal is not, I really want to talk to a native speaker one day. And if it is the goal that you have, that's kind of what this presentation is about. Is about trying to say, let's think about what your goals might be. So what we're looking at today is English as a lingua franca. And a lingua franca is just a language that people speak to communicate. And so when it comes to English, this is when speakers with different first languages communicate through English. It's a pretty simple definition. You go to Cambodia and you speak English with someone there, that's English as a lingua franca. You have international students at Unair, and they're studying from another country here or there in Indonesia, that's English as a lingua franca. This meeting, because I'm involved, is English as a lingua franca. So when you have people from different first languages communicating, this is English as a lingua franca. And so you may say, well, how is that different than what we've been thinking about? Well, what you've been thinking about possibly is more of English as a foreign language, where you are trying to become like a native speaker. The English as a lingua franca has different goals and different thoughts, a different mindset. And that's what we're going to look at a little bit today. So again, we return to this circle, and with this idea that English isn't really about native speaker anymore, Katru actually redesigned his circles to kind of look like this, where there's a little more overlap between the different ones. They affect each other a little bit more, and the inner circle is not the middle anymore. In fact, it's smaller now. Now it's smaller and not as important as it looked like in this one. In this one, it looks like the target goal is to be like the inner circle. But Katru has redesigned his idea a little bit to say, you know what, they're all important, they're all different, they're all affecting each other. So English as a lingua franca is focusing on communication mostly between the expanding circle and outer circles, which is probably what is more realistic for the kind of English that a lot of you or a lot of your students, US students, will be experiencing more of communication with people from other parts of the world. Even not saying there could not be a native speaker in there, and we'll talk about that. But that's what English as a lingua franca is. So some terms that come out of this, some terms that we discuss when we talk about English as a lingua franca, is we talk about ownership. And it now, with the mindset of English as a lingua franca, you're saying it belongs to everybody. English belongs to everybody who's speaking it. That includes each one of you. Each one of you has as much of a part of English developing and English becoming. It belongs to all of you. And this is one of the key phrases that we use in English as a lingua franca. Who owns it? It doesn't belong to the British, doesn't belong to the Americans. It belongs to everyone who speaks it, and that includes you all. And then what becomes the main goal is no longer nativeness, which is like trying to be like a native speaker, but the goal is to be understood, or intelligibility. This is the big goal. Did people understand what you wanted to communicate? That is the goal. And now it's no longer, I don't sound like that British person anymore. It's not like that. And another word that comes out in English as a lingua franca is accommodation. And what this means is that we change our speech to help people understand us. Since the goal is, I want you to understand me, then I'm willing to change my speech so you can understand me. I'm not going to choose language that is difficult for you so that you don't understand me, so I can feel like all smart and better than you. It's not like that. The goal is communication. So I change my language to fit what you can understand. That is accommodation, and that is a part of English as a lingua franca. A couple of other things which are we'll just briefly mention. I know as Pak Jati was presenting, he felt like he had to apologize for some code switching, but in English as a lingua franca, it's actually encouraged if, especially if people know more than one language, to kind of just move around with the languages. So that's encouraged. And then one of the biggest things is that you're no longer ashamed of whatever accent you have. The accent you have is yours. It gives you the identity that you have. As long as it's intelligible, and that's where it gets tricky, you can be proud of it. As long as people know what you're saying, there's no like comparison to this thing that you can never reach of trying to sound like this person. But instead, you are proud of who you are. And that is one of the beautiful things about English as a lingua franca. And then the last thing is that it's really a choice of whether you want to focus on speaking English as a lingua franca or not. And so no one is saying, oh, because you're in Indonesia, this is the version you have to speak. No, it's really just up to you as to if you feel like, yeah, most of the people I'm going to talk to are going to be from ASEAN. So why am I trying to sound like an American? You know, this is your choice about what your goals are. And this is kind of English as a lingua franca in a kind of in a summary. So I come back to this topic of what about the inner circle? What about me? Do I count in that group? And I mentioned earlier that this is a English as a lingua franca situation, and I'm included. But the difference is that I do not come as in expecting you to sound like me. I come into it with a different mindset that I just want to be communicating. I want you to understand me, and I hope that you want me to understand you. So there's a different attitude when there is a native speaker involved, where it's no longer my language, but it's our language. I cannot tell you the number of times in Indonesia people apologize to me for their English, and you probably all want to apologize now, but this is different for English as a lingua franca because each person owns it, and one person isn't the one who's going around judging everybody's English. Instead, it's being shared. It's a shared thing because the goal is communication, not judgment. And so, yes, native speakers can be involved, but they are not the owners in the involvement. They're just another participant, just like everybody else. Just to answer that question in case you were wondering. So all of this comes to what is this all about that I'm trying to talk about, and why does my PowerPoint have big dart? And what we're talking about really is the goals that you have in your mind. What kind of goals are in your mind as you are either teaching, being in administration, or you're a student, or you're preparing to be a teacher, all of these things. What kind of goals are in your mind? And so that's why I have a dart, because I want you to consider, what is your target? What is your goal? That is what I want you to think about today. In a globalized world, our topic is globalization, right? And you are in a very globalized situation. So is your goal really the best goal for you? I mean, only you can answer that, but I want to give you thoughts about that. And so that also applies to these skills that we're going to be talking about. It applies to production and reception. It's going to be different in English as a lingua franca, because we're no longer saying we need to imitate and be like a native speaker. That is not the goal. The goal, again, as I've mentioned, is intelligibility. So it's very different when it comes to production and comes to reception or perception of language. So I want to, and this is also another reason why it's important, because I can already guess that you're thinking, but I really want to be able to watch movies, and I really want to be able to read research, and I really want to listen to my favorite musicians and understand them. All of these things you can still do in English as a lingua franca if you really make your goals proper when it comes to reception and versus production, because all of these are actually receptive skills. So it's not a bad thing to understand native speaker language receptively, but it doesn't mean you have to sound like them or you have to produce everything like them. And so here, this is the main topic that I have, is production versus perception, or you might also think of perception as reception, what you understand. So in other words, production is what you're actually making with the language. Are you speaking it, your pronunciation, your writing, what kind of vocabulary are you using? All of this is production. And in your perception, you have what you're actually understanding, what you're hearing, what you're reading, your vocabulary that you understand. Because there's two kinds of vocabulary: the vocabulary you choose to speak, and the vocabulary that you know that when you hear it, you know what it means. And so the goals for English as a lingua franca, they become separate. In production and perception separate more than before, because you're not trying to imitate a native speaker anymore. So let me just give you some examples here. I'm going to try anyway. Hopefully these will play. Oh, let me review a little bit. So for these examples are coming from my thesis, my PhD research. Just a quick, I don't want to go through the whole thing of my research, but what I did was I had ASEAN speakers do a discuss the differences task. So this is one picture, and then the other picture is different but has the same objects. So people would discuss, ASEAN speakers would discuss these two pictures, and then there's another set. This was the living room set, and then this one is the street set. And you can see in one picture everything is like nice and happy, and then the other one is like gone crazy. And so I had 41 ASEAN speakers discuss these pictures. And so I have 40 recordings, 280 minutes. And we did have 5 Indonesians participating in this. And again, everyone is speaking to someone from ASEAN. No native speakers are involved in this. And what this means is that it was them, it was non-native speaker English speakers who were deciding what that was understood or not understood. So they had these discussions, and I looked for misunderstandings. I also looked for, I also sent surveys to them about their language, kind of like this one, where they would listen, for example.
Here it is dated on 13th of July, 7:14 a.m.
Could you hear that? Could you hear something?
Yes. Very
Okay,
clear.
good. Okay, so so they got this kind of feedback where they had their own speech or their partner's speech, and they had to fill in what they thought they heard. So in this case, because most intelligibility research in the past was about what do native speakers understand, because the world revolved around native speakers. But this research is about what do ASEAN speakers understand about ASEAN speakers English. And so my examples come from them. So just to let you know that that's where this is coming from. And so the first example I want you to experience here is this word. Can you understand this word? Let me see if I can do it right. No.
There is a photographer who take the picture.
Okay.
And one photographer.
Yes.
And the photographer.
Okay, so this was an Indonesian, a Laotian, Cambodian, and a Thai speaking. And did you understand the word that they the main word they said? If so, can you write it in the chat? What word were they saying? Are you there? Yeah, so photographer is what they said. And you understood the word? Yes, photographer. And maybe this is the normal pronunciation for you in Indonesia, is photographer. But this is actually not native speaker pronunciation. Native speakers have a very horrible pronunciation for this word. Oops,
And one
sorry.
photographer.
Sorry.
Photographer.
Sorry. So we take the word photographer. We say photographer as the standard English pronunciation is photographer with stress on the second syllable, and the other syllables turn into a schwa. And if you know IPA, if you know the phonetic alphabet, it looks like this. It's actually pronounced photographer. Photographer. Now, which one is more intelligible? Photographer or photographer? That's what ELF is about. That's what English as a lingua franca is about. Are the things that we are trying to do or teach as standard, is it really what's the most intelligible? And so that is what English as a lingua franca is saying. So even when I presented this finding, I was talking to somebody at the conference and she was like, oh, where's the photographer? And it was an ASEAN conference. I was like, man, this word photographer is gonna become popular. Even I like it. I prefer photographer over photographer. And so in English as a lingua franca, what it says is, this is easier. This is more intelligible. Yeah, the most important is intelligible. So maybe over time, the more that of these outer circle, expanding circle speakers choose photographer, which is easier to understand, maybe they're going to help bring about change for more intelligible English. Maybe. But here's another example of what we're looking. Oh, so sorry. If I was in an English as a lingua franca setting, because that's intelligible, I still would probably want to teach my students what standard is, because some people will produce it that way. I might teach them about the schwas. I might teach them about how stress moves. And I might teach them this so that they could identify, if somebody said photographer, they would know what that meant. But I don't think that I would require my students, do they really need to produce it that way if it's already intelligible the other way? That's the debate. That's the debate. If I'm planning to only use my English in ASEAN, do I need to be learning it to sound like somebody else far away? Like, would an ASEAN speaker understand me if I say photographer versus photographer? That's the question. So who are you going to be speaking your English with? And what is going to make you more intelligible to everybody else? That is the question. And so here's another example, the same data set from the same pictures. Here's, see if you can figure out what he says. This is a gentleman from Myanmar.
In my picture, this guy is very easy peasy.
I'll play it again.
In my picture, this guy is very easy peasy.
Anybody have a guess what he's saying?
In my picture, this guy is very easy peasy.
Anybody can guess? And this is I think I put the picture here. Let me see.
In my picture, this guy is very easy peasy.
Oh yeah, you got it, easy peasy. He chose to use easy peasy because he had this picture. Everything is like happy and nice in his picture. And so he says everything is easy peasy. But easy peasy is not really a very normal choice of vocabulary. This is kind of one of those more advanced. Yes, easy peasy. Well, a lot of you got it. But the listener heard.
In my picture,
sorry.
this guy is very easy peasy.
The listener heard easy busy, because this was not a phrase. The listener was from Thailand, and this listener didn't know the phrase easy peasy, and instead said easy busy. And her picture looked.
In my picture,
her picture looked like looked like this. So hers was busy. So she heard easy busy, as if he made up something new. And so in this case, was it the right choice in an English as a lingua franca setting to choose vocabulary instead of just saying he is relaxed or he is calm? Instead of choosing that language, he's chosen to use vocabulary that's not the most common vocabulary that might be taught around the world. So this is what English as a lingua franca is about. So it is argued that pronunciation and listening need to be thought of as separate skills and that have different goals. So then they require different models of speech and need carefully differentiated classroom activities. And I don't know if this is something you're already thinking about in your classes. But the big question becomes, okay, I'm hearing you, Christy, but how do we know? How do we know what is intelligible, what's not intelligible? And that's where the research is coming out. And that's why I did my research on this. Intelligibility is just how well someone understands your message, how well someone understands your message. So what we look for in English as a lingua franca is what helps intelligibility, and what makes intelligibility harder. Those are the thoughts you should have as you're producing language. And if it doesn't do either of those, maybe you're wasting your time if you spend too much time on the classroom on that. So these are the things we're looking for. So one scholar, Jenkins, she tried to create what she calls a lingua franca core and this is pronunciation. Pronunciation is my specialty, I guess. And so most of my work is pronunciation, but there are other areas in English as a lingua franca, as we talked about. There's also writing, there's also grammar, vocabulary. And so she argues all the consonants are important except for the TH sounds. She says, and the dark L is at the end of a sentence, end of a word. So the TH ones like th and the is okay if it's a t or a d, she argues. And pretty much mostly consonants, and then one thing about nuclear stress, which I won't go into detail about that. And so that means she excludes, she says, these are not necessary for you to produce. Again, reception is important, but to produce them, it is not necessary for an English as a lingua franca speaker to, again, produce the TH sounds, to produce vowels perfectly, to produce weak forms of a sentence, and I'll talk about these if you don't know what they are, to produce connected speech, to do their pitch, to do word stress, and to have any rhythm. She says all these things are not important. For me, that was a hard thing to hear because for me, a lot of those are important. So I wanted to know more. And so that's why my research is based on this. And I specifically researched word stress because word stress is very important to native speakers. So I wanted to know, is it really not important in English as a lingua franca settings? And so that's why those pictures were designed, and that's why those conversations happened, to find out what was intelligible when it comes to word stress in ASEAN. And my findings ended up showing that syllables are important. If in ASEAN, if a syllable is deleted, there was misunderstanding. Every time a syllable was deleted, there was a misunderstanding. So that was important. Also, if a vowel was changed, that could cause problems. And so when a vowel would change, that, except for photographer is the only one that was like always different, and everybody was okay with that. But if there was a vowel change in what was expected, then there were misunderstandings. And I'm going to show you some of these examples. And then, but if someone did equal stress, that was okay. So equal stress was okay. And then another interesting thing is wherever there was a consonant problem, it was always in the stressed syllable. So maybe stress has more importance than Jenkins was giving it. So I have to disagree with Jenkins, but let me show you some of this data. So this is where there were no vowel changes, but there was a shift in the stress. So the stress moved. If you don't know what word stress is, there's one syllable on every word in English that is louder, longer, higher. For the word injured, it's normally on the first syllable. We would say injured. But as you hear here, he's going to say it differently.
And a lot of people was injured.
This is a Vietnamese speaker. He put his stress on the second syllable and she understood. Okay, the Filipino listener understood. Same thing happens with the word carpenter. Normally your stress is on the first syllable, carpenter, but he moved his stress to the second syllable and it was still understood.
And I see a carpenter is trying to fix something.
So maybe Jenkins wasn't completely off in saying that word stress can be excluded from production when it comes to no vowel changes. If there's no vowel changes, injured versus injured is the same. Carpenter versus carpenter, the vowels are still the same. So that seemed to be okay, which was actually surprising to me. So maybe that's okay. Maybe that doesn't need to be corrected or forced to be produced. But when...
And a lot of people...
sorry.
Was
and I see...
Okay. So, oh no.
And on the desktop.
Sorry. But when there was a vowel change, this is when misunderstandings occurred. So we'll see here, normally the stress is on the first syllable. It would be circled. But this speaker produces it on the second syllable. I'll let you hear it. And then you're going to hear, the listener heard it as called, heard the word as called.
And on the desktop computer, there is a calendar, which number 13 is called the conference.
So the stress shifted here, and there was a vowel change, and it was misunderstood. So this was not intelligible. And then in the second one, the Thai speaker changed 2 vowels, and so I'll let you hear that.
And everything is orange. Everything is green and okay, organized.
He was trying to say arranged, but he said orange. And so that was misunderstood within, not by a native speaker didn't misunderstand it, but someone within their own region misunderstood it. So it seems like word stress may not be something that should be excluded quite yet from this lingua franca core, according to my research, at least in the ASEAN setting. We're going to talk about connected speech in just a second, but I will also say that in our research, we did confirm that weak forms like to and from and things like that, it was okay that they didn't reduce those. So we found that that was okay. So some of it is supported, like my data supported some of the lingua franca core, but then specifically word stress, it wasn't 100% black and white. There's some issues there. So I don't want to draw this out too long, but let's just stick with the idea of pronunciation. So some things I would believe you need to learn receptively are things about that just the concept of word stress and the concept of a schwa, okay? And the concept of sentence stress and reductions, just so that when you're listening, you can be, you can understand like movies better, you can understand music better, you can understand a conference that might be international better. If you don't know what all these features are, you know, well, I can't probably teach you. You can ask your teachers. But I think my theory is that these are not even taught receptively because there's this belief that if I can't produce it, I can't teach it. I shouldn't teach about word stress because I don't know if I'm doing it right. Or I shouldn't teach about sentence stress because I don't know if I'm doing it right. So because you're worried about how you're producing it, there's no teaching of it. And so my argument is that you don't have to produce it, but it is good for people to know what's happening in language. So things like word stress, sentence stress, linking. Linking is where we take one sound and we hook it to the next one. So here at the bottom here, I've got some examples of linking look a lot like this. This is linking and how we would speak. I would include that in the reception. We delete an initial H. Americans do, I think British do as well. Instead of what did he do, we would say what he do. Now, I would not encourage this in a production sense. I would not encourage someone to go from Indonesia to Thailand and be like, what do you do? They're not going to be understood as well. But for intelligibility purposes, you don't need to speak it. But for receptive purposes, it's not a bad thing to learn. So learning these deletions, instead of saying, what did you give him? We would say, what'd you give him? Because we also do assimilations of D and Y, like TY makes a ch sound, what you doing? And a DY sounds like a j, where'd you go? These things are good for people to receive and to know are existing in some, you know, in the forms of English that they would probably be exposed to and want to be exposed to. The American flap, only receptively. And what that means is we say water instead of water. Americans do that. And that is proven to not be the best intelligible thing. It's better to make a T. Also knowing the difference between a rhotic with an R, like a British water, instead of having an R, like an American water. These are important for reception. And again, my belief is that a lot of international teachers don't even teach these receptively because they can't produce them either. Or they're not comfortable, they're not confident in the production of them. And so I want to argue that if you look at it as, I just need to teach it receptively, then it's not as scary and it's still beneficial for my students. So understanding features such as deletions, assimilations, and connected speech are extremely beneficial for listening, but not necessarily helpful for intelligibility. So all those features I just showed you are what Americans do. Americans do this all the time, and it's hard to understand. It's hard to understand, and that's why it's good for reception. But if you want to be intelligible when you travel, you don't necessarily need to copy this. But to understand, it's good. So this is where we get the difference between what is my production goal and what is my reception goal, my perception goal. Again, there are other areas that this applies to. There are grammar things like people turning non-count items into things with an S, like furnitures instead of furniture. Is this really that big of a deal? It still communicates the same idea. I am not a grammar expert, so I can't answer too many questions on English as a lingua franca and these topics, but I know that these are also part of the debate of English as a lingua franca. So just some questions to ask yourselves, okay? If you're in administration, are you prioritizing native speaker speech too much? Like, are you always like, how can we get a native speaker? We need a native speaker. What about a native speaker? Are you doing that too much? Are we celebrating intelligible non-native speaker enough? Like, are we showing that we're very proud of our own staff or our own people in our own country who are intelligible? Are we prioritizing them and celebrating them? Are you willing in administration to hire people who are not native speakers as staff? I mean, I know you have your Indonesian staff, but would you hire a Thai to come in and teach who's not a native speaker? These are thoughts to think about. If you're thinking about a globalized English, you have to go beyond just it's us and a native speaker world, because that's not what the real world is. And then you have internationals on your campus that you could at least even get them to record their accents, and you could get, you know, exposure to those accents. That could be beneficial. For instructors, are you actually proud of your accent, or are you always thinking, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough? Because you should be proud. You should be proud of what your accent is, and because it's good. And do you avoid teaching skills because you can't produce them? Like, are you avoiding teaching some things because you don't think you can produce it? If that's the case, that might be someplace you need to reconsider. Maybe at least teach it receptively, even if production is difficult. Are you including material from other places, not just native speaker material? Are you including speakers from Thailand, speakers from other parts of the world in what your students are listening to? That will benefit them greatly. And are you contributing to this whole nativeness principle? Are you making students feel that native speakers are somehow better than other people? Are you doing that? Maybe not consciously in your classroom, but do you find yourself doing that? Do you tell them, go find a native speaker, instead of saying, go find someone who can speak English? Are you doing those kinds of things in your classroom? A book, C looked at all these business English books, and all of them were 16%, only 16% were a non-native speaker. In business English. And that we know that there's a lot of people around the world that are doing English that are not native speakers, so they're not being included. And I think it starts with administration and instructors in bringing those things together. If you're a student, do you prioritize a native speaker's English over someone who's not a native speaker, but they have good English? Do you prioritize that? Are you proud of your accent? Or do you feel like, oh no, I don't sound like that. I don't sound like that. Are you enjoying creating your identity with your own accent and your own way of speaking? Are you purposely listening to people from other places, not just native speaker countries or Indonesia, but from around the world? Are you getting used to other accents? And are you willing to communicate with the internationals on your campus? That's another place to get more exposure to different accents and practice intelligibility. These are good options. So just in conclusion, English as a lingua franca is not like a specific language. It's not codified. It's not a set thing. It's just a way of thinking. It's a mindset of thinking, wait, I'm part of a bigger community than just them and me. It's not that. It's we are all together in this kind of mindset. And it is usually discussed for like a non-native speaker conversation is usually what ELF is discussing. But the main thing is that nativeness is not the goal, but intelligibility is the goal. And the beautiful thing is that it allows you to be proud of how your English is developing. And it also says that you don't have to produce and be exactly like a native speaker. Because truth is, we don't even understand each other, like I said in the first place. I don't understand my British supervisor so often. And so an Australian, it takes me a long time to understand an Australian. So there's a lot of misconceptions that somehow a native speaker accent is the easiest when it is not. Actually, when I was in Brunei, Bruneians are really easy for me to understand. They have a great accent. And I think Indonesians could have a similarly great accent if you would just have more confidence in yourselves. And a good thing if you're if you're a professor and you're looking for things to research, English as a lingua franca is kind of a newer area, and it's a good place to research and consider what's really happening in Indonesia. It's such a large country. How is English as a lingua franca developing here? And how can you help with the mindset that your English is good? Yeah. So anyways, it's something you might want to research more. And finally, again, this is a choice. It's not like someone says you must be speaking English as a lingua franca. Maybe your goal is to go study in the US. If that's the goal, then of course you need to probably produce some of the language for an American to understand you better. But it's all about like, what's your goal? What's your motivation? But I wanted to present this mindset to you, and in case it fits your goals, in case it fits who you are and what your goals are. Yeah, so I have a lot of references here, and I do have a question page. Here we go. Okay, I don't think I have a ton of time left, but I do think I have some, according to, I have maybe just a few questions.
Maybe we could save the questions at the end of the seminar, Christy, after Lila.
I think I might disappear because it's already 11 p.m. here, and I'm still like struggling with my COVID shot. I'm just like,
okay.
But I also can take questions later too, if you want. Like, I mean, people can write me. People can write me if they want to.
Yeah, maybe one question here from Ibu Andriani Marente. Yeah, so she's asking, she agrees with your explanation, but for a fact, there are also students who think that American or British English are the Englishes they have to acquire and look up to. So do you have any practical suggestion to handle the problem? And then she also continue asking, and regarding your finding in the Asian context, would it be possible that they're probably applicable in their own context and not necessarily generalizable to others?
Yeah, I mean, all of these are like the big issues, and that's part of the reason I chose this topic, is because it is a mindset thing, right? So as long as everyone's mindset is, I must sound like an English a native speaker, then we can't really make much progress. So it's really all about mindset, and that's why I chose this topic, is because I know the Indonesian context, which is very native speakery, and I don't think it has to be. I feel like by showing students, I think as the teacher, it's kind of your job to show students other people who are intelligible from around the world. If you're showing videos and having people listen to conversations with non-native speakers who have good English, I think it will start to change a little bit more. But if all they have in the classroom is only native speaker, only native speaker, only native speaker, then how is that going to change? And if administration is always saying, oh, but we need a native speaker, then that's not going to change. So it starts in all different levels to get the mindset to change. It has to start somewhere. As far as the generalizing, I think that's important. Everyone in ELF doesn't want to say it's codified thing, that it has to be like this. But that all they're doing is telling you what their data has found so far. And that's kind of my take. Like, and the argument with Jenkins stuff is but she tried to kind of generalize it to the whole world when her stuff was kind of in Europe. And that's one of the reasons I chose to at least say, I don't think your stuff works for word stress over here. Just so that that question is still in the mindset. And at least as a jumping board. But that's why I think that people in Indonesia could jump on board on this, like that they could be part of that conversation, say, well, let's see how that fits here where we are. And that's kind of what research is about, taking someone's idea who tried to generalize it and saying, does it fit here or does it not fit here? I hope that answers both of those questions.
Ibu Andriani, I hope that answers your questions. And thank you, Christy, for a very inspiring speech. So everyone, in sum, Ibu Christy stated that English is now viewed as a lingua franca. She suggested that English is in fact studied not for the mere goal, the mere goal to speak to a native speaker, but to actually communicating with people all over the world.
Yeah.
And the situation here led to a transformation of space and ownership spaces, ownership circles, of the language and of the target or goal of learning English, which means that nowadays English is not only about how to be like native speakers, but learning English is for the purpose of accommodation, that is to make people understand us and the other way around. In other words, nowadays the world does not center around the native speakers anymore. Thank you, Ibu Christy, for the insightful and enlightening speech.
Yes, and I just want to say goodbye and thank you. My email is available. You can ask around for my email if anyone wants to ask further questions, but it is late here and I think I'm running a fever from my shot, so I think I'm going to go to bed. And I'm sorry, Bu Lila. I know it's recorded, so I look forward to, maybe I can watch your presentation later. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But thank you very much.
Thank you, and
thank you, Christy.
Yes, thank you.
Wish you all well and healthy, Christy, after the shot.
Yes, thank you.
Have a nice rest. Have a nice
Thank you very much. Bye, everyone.
Okay,
bye-bye, Christy.
Thank you very much. Yeah, well, ladies and gentlemen, now we come to the last but not least presenter, Ibu Dr. Lila Musada. She's going to discuss about revisiting multilingualism in globalized era, a view towards communicative competence. Ibu Lila, the floor is yours.
Thank you, the beloved college, Bu Laili Habida. Terima kasih Bu Wayan sudah memberikan kesempatan untuk berinteraksi dengan adik-adik mahasiswa. Terima kasih untuk hadirin yang sudah bersabar menunggu sampai pukul 11.16. Selamat siang semuanya. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera. Saya menggunakan bahasa Indonesia ya. I will speak in bahasa first and then sometimes I jump in English. Okay? Bisa dibantu Mbak Dila untuk slide-nya. Nah, di sini kita berbagi sedikit ya, tentang apa yang dimaksud dengan multilingualism, kemudian cultural capital, linguistic capital, kemudian communicative competence. Sebenarnya 3 kata kunci tersebut dari paparan dari point of view multidisiplin. Jadi communicative competence kita mengambil dari konsep applied linguistic pada communicative competence. Let's try to share. Wait a minute. Okay, so the highlight one here is linguistic capital of multilingualism, a view towards communicative competence. Tolong slide berikutnya, Mbak Dila. Nah, Bapak dan Ibu sekalian yang saya hormati, ya, bahasan untuk diskusi kita siang ini mencakup tentang linguistic capital atau modal linguistik, kemudian communicative competence, kompetensi komunikasi, dan multilingualism. Jadi di sini kita melihat dari perspektif multidisiplin, di mana multilingualism tersebut merupakan satu keadaan ya, atau satu kondisi. I will talk later after this, but I would like to see those as 3 different view. And then berikutnya communicative competence. Nah, istilah communicative competence ini sering kita dengar ya Bapak Ibu sekalian, baik itu di bidang pendidikan atau di bidang ranah komunikasi. Tapi di sini kita highlight pada applied linguistic. Kenapa kita menggunakan communicative competence? Karena paradigma pendekatan komunikatif itu yang diadopsi pada kelas-kelas klasikal baik sebelum pandemi sampai saat ini. Itu yang kita amati sampai sekarang. Jadi ditekankan pada pendekatan komunikatif di era sebelum COVID dan era post-COVID. Nah, di sini nanti salah satu contoh penelitian yang akan saya bagi kepada Bapak Ibu sekalian, pada konsep pendekatan komunikatif kita akan meng-highlight, kita akan melihat apa yang dimaksud dengan strategic competence. Jadi awalnya strategic competence ini sangat klasik ya, pada dunia TEFL dipropose atau digaungkan oleh Ellis, nama Bro, Josh, itu Joshua di sini maaf dari point of view linguistik. Kalau pada communicative competence kita melihat dari point of view applied linguistik atau linguistik terapan. Nah, kemudian di sini kita sandingkan dengan linguistic capital. Pertanyaannya kenapa Bu dengan linguistic capital? Karena kita melihat posisi sekolah, kelas, kemudian yang kita berada saat ini pada perguruan tinggi itu pada posisi di society, di masyarakat. And then how can we tailor all those three different concepts? From the point of view of linguistic capital, sebenarnya istilah linguistic capital ini diambil dari pendapat Bourdieu ya, seorang filosofer di era 90 dan 2000-an. Kemudian I would like to talk a lot actually what is it about, apa sih education, culture capital dan Bourdieu. Kita sedikit melihat pada fakta di sekeliling kita ya. Sekarang kan kita di era globalisasi ya. Jadi era globalisasi itu apa sih? Kemampuan untuk berekspresi menggunakan bahasa asing diperlukan, Mem. Kenapa? Karena bahasa Inggris diperlukan sebagai sarana komunikasi. Tadi Kristi sudah menggaungkan itu. Tapi kita kan melihatlah, kita ini berkomunikasi dengan bahasa Inggris itu di mana? Itu yang kita perlu lihat, di posisi mana. Nah, kemampuan berekspresi atau menggunakan bahasa asing dikaitkan dengan kemampuan individu. Sekarang yang akan saya katakanlah perlebar. Nah, kemampuan individu atau masyarakat, kalau saya boleh menanyakan. Jadi konsep multibahasa di sini merupakan satu tindakan menggunakan dua bahasa atau lebih oleh individu ataupun masyarakat. Jadi sudah bergeser ya, bukan hanya individu dan sekelompok masyarakat, tapi yang terbaru, pendapat yang terbaru menyatakan jika individu tersebut bisa menggunakan dua bahasa atau lebih, bukan lagi namanya multibahasa, tapi plurilingualism. Jadi berlaku untuk individu yang memiliki kemampuan berbicara lebih dari satu bahasa. Kita semua percaya kalau Bapak Ibu di sini semua bisa berbicara lebih dari satu bahasa kan, selain bahasa ibu, mother tongue, kemudian bahasa nasional kita, bahasa Indonesia, and then the last one is foreign language. Nah, sebenarnya fenomena ini terjadinya kapan sih? Mulai kapan? Fenomena multibahasa ini dimulai sejak berakhirnya Perang Dunia Kedua. Nah, di mana konsep globalized world tadi sudah dibahas oleh Kristi dan Pak Jati, dan dengan kecanggihan teknologi ya, tadi Pak Jati sudah membahas hal yang sangat canggih-canggih. Kemudian kita melihat ke masyarakat sekeliling kita, gitu ya. Nah, jadi tolong dibedakan ya antara konsep multilingual dan plurilingualism. Oke. Kita sekarang melihat di sekeliling kita. Kalau kita melihat kalau kita mendengar istilah multilingualism, kita mengacu pada, kalau saya boleh bertanya, mengacu pada ragam bahasa yang kita gunakan atau kemampuan berbahasa yang kita gunakan. Kita katakanlah berbahasa Inggris. kita berkomunikasi menggunakan bahasa Inggris. Apakah boleh disebut ragam bahasa? Oke, kita tinggalkan dulu ya. Kalau kita bicara di sekeliling kita menggunakan bahasa Indonesia. Kira-kira di Indonesia itu ada berapa ada berapa bahasa lokal sebelum kita menginjak ke ragam bahasa? I try to speak in Indonesian first. Mungkin ada yang bertanya ya, kenapa Bu kita membahas bahasa lokal dulu? Karena because we are Indonesians. So we have to know very well actually how many, let's say, native languages in our beloved country. So actually we have 726 ragam bahasa in this country. Jadi ada 726 ragam bahasa di Indonesia, di mana terdapat 719 bahasa lokal atau daerah yang aktif digunakan yang sampai sekarang, dan terdapat 2 bahasa tanpa penutur asli serta 5 bahasa tanpa diketahui penuturnya. Ini yang terbaru di 2019, jadi terbaru. Mungkin kalau ada fakta lain atau data lain boleh di-share. Nah, dari kondisi tersebut, dari kondisi tersebut menunjukkan bahwa keberadaan bahasa asing digunakan, di sini bahasa Inggris ya, digunakan sebagai bahasa kedua oleh kelompok masyarakat. Jadi sekelompok masyarakat tertentu, bukan semua masyarakat di wilayah perkotaan. Kita garis bawahi wilayah perkotaan. Bahasa Inggris berperan sebagai bahasa asing yang digunakan secara global untuk melintasi batas-batas budaya dan geografis. Masyarakat dari berbagai macam latar belakang budaya, kita katakan budaya, berbicara mengenai ragam bahasa Inggris, saya katakan ragam bahasa Inggris. Yang mana jumlah individu pengguna bahasa Inggris sebagai bahasa pertama, bahasa kedua, dan bahasa asing ini kan sangat meningkat ya. Sehingga jumlah varietas bahasa Inggris, tadi Chris sudah mengemukakan, varietas bahasa Inggris, terutama lisan, sangat berkembang. Nah, di sini kita akan melihat, nah kira-kira ragam bahasa Inggris yang mana sih yang digunakan oleh sekelompok masyarakat tersebut yang ada di wilayah perkotaan. Oke, tolong di slide berikutnya Mbak Dila. 400-an lebih tersebar di Papua, ya betul. Nah, kita punya 700 bahasa daerah ya, 700 tadi sudah spesifik ya, 729. Dan ada 2 bahasa tanpa penutur. Oke, we'll talk about that later. Jadi ini kita tadi prolog ya. Jadi bahasa Inggris digunakan sebagai dengan alasan-alasan tertentu ya di komunitas perkotaan. Oke. Nah, konsep linguistic capital di sini diambil dari Bapak Bourdieu, teorinya Pak Bourdieu. Sebenarnya ini dari filosofi, di mana mengacu pada konsep arena. Konsep arena satu aktor di sini nanti saya kaitkan dengan sausur, pendapat sausur dari linguistik. Kalau ada pertanyaan, kenapa kok sausur? Jadi di sini ada dialog ya. Ada dialog dialektika teori antara Bourdieu dan Saussure. Saya akan bercerita sedikit bagaimana dialektika teoritis antara pemikiran Bourdieu, Saussure, kemudian Chomsky. Nah, dari ketiga pendapat tersebut kita jadikan satu pada konsep multilingual. Kita jadikan satu dalam arti perspektif yang saling mendukung ya. Pada buku Bourdieu tentang yang berjudul Language and Symbolic Power, di sini menyatakan konsep lang yang dikemukakan oleh Saussure dan konsep competence. Jadi sebenarnya istilah competence itu dari Chomsky ya. Chomsky di tahun 60-an sangat klasik memang, tapi sampai saat ini masih diadopsi. Jadi konsep linguistic capital itu terdapat pada pemikiran Bourdieu pada buku Language and Symbolic Power. Jadi sini menyatakan pendapat Saussure tentang Lang dan kompeten sebagai ahli bahasa melihat konstruksi, tidak bisa melihat apa sih yang dimaksud dengan konstruksi atau legitimasi bahasa pada struktur sosial. Nah, ini belum berhenti sampai di sini ya. Tapi kita melihat sekali lagi dinyatakan, Bourdieu menyatakan kenapa disebut dengan linguistic capital. Pertukaran linguistik merupakan relasi komunikasi antara pengirim pesan dan penerima pesan. Tadi kita sepakat ya, kita kan berbahasa Inggris. Pertanyaannya, kita tuh berbahasa Inggris di mana? That's a very big question. Itu kan pertanyaannya yang sangat mendasar. Kita berbahasa Inggris di mana dan dengan siapa? Itu yang dinyatakan oleh Bourdieu, di mana dia menanyakan konsep Lang dari Saussure. Let's move on. Pertukaran linguistik merupakan relasi komunikasi antara pengirim pesan dan penerima pesan, serta implementasi sistem kode pada pertukaran sosial yang dilakukan oleh relasi kekuasaan antara pemilik modal. Pemilik modal di sini saya beri tanda highlight ya. Pemilik modal itu bukan berarti pemilik, let's say, refer to money, no. But that's what we call cultural capital. So education is part of cultural capital in which that when the individual perceives certain time, they have a kind of norms that empower himself or herself. That the concept of education actually. Now, Bourdieu di sini melihat pada saat seseorang berkomunikasi menggunakan bahasa asing ya, merupakan satu pertukaran simbolik yang dikenal dan dipersepsi kemudian dilegitimasi karena ujaran-ujarannya. Sekarang kita melihat ya, kita sandingkan dengan konsep pada community competence. Pada pendapat communicative competence, di situ ada satu bagian yang dimaksud dengan strategic competence. Tolong slide berikutnya Mbak Dila. Atau communication strategies. So, communication strategy actually are to be seen as the part of communicative competence. Jadi bagian dari pendekatan komunikatif dan dikenal sebagai strategic competence. Strategic competence itu apa sih? Jadi kemampuan untuk mengatasi pada saat kita berkomunikasi dan we sometimes blend dan mengalami hambatan, di mana hambatan tersebut dikarenakan disebabkan beberapa faktor. Salah satunya adalah faktor katakanlah grammatical dari bahasa tersebut atau lexical dari bahasa tersebut. Karena inti dari komunikasi itu kan how to make the communication channel open supaya flow-nya itu enak lancar begitu kan ya. Tapi pada saat ini apa ya? Sering kan kita pada saat kita di kelas kemudian ada pertanyaan dari siswa kita, dari mahasiswa kita, "Mem, sebenarnya saya tuh bisa, teman kok nggak bisa ngomongnya ya?" It sometimes happen, right? So in this case, for certain individual, they apply certain strategic. That's what we call strategic competence. Kemudian kita bagi lagi ya konsep strategic competence di sini kita kategorikan pada organization competence. Nah, sekarang kita lihat bagaimana individu tersebut, bagaimana pembelajar tersebut, bagaimana learner tersebut, bagaimana a group of people, let's say, have a concept of linguistic capital. Because they proceed actually in the habit of multilingualisms. So that's why, karena itu di sini saya mencoba membuat satu draft yang sederhana di mana communicative competence, kompetensi komunikatif tersebut memiliki alur yang membuat atau yang memberdayakan learner, pembelajar, individu tersebut mengaktifkan yang dinamakan dengan strategi kompeten sehingga membentuk satu aspek yang disebut linguistic capital. Okay, now actually I would like to make it fast. Tolong slide berikutnya, Mbak. Dari paparan tersebut, kita coba melakukan satu penelitian ya. Dengan dua paradigma. Untuk riset design, I apply, next slide Mbak Dila. Tolong slide berikutnya. I try to apply the qualitative research design, and then untuk pendekatan I use CDA, critical discourse analysis, and then for the data I would like to use corpus-based data. So the function of corpus here is try to identify the index or the, let's say, the words which is the smallest entity in the interactions for certain community. Kemudian findingnya di sini sangat mengagetkan sebenarnya. Jadi sekali lagi saya ulang ya, untuk riset design, I apply qualitative one for the research approach. Previously, I prefer to have CA, conversation analysis, because in conversation analysis, we can, let's see, identify, kita bisa mengenali setiap tuturan yang dihasilkan oleh individu yang berbahasa asing tersebut. Berbahasa asing di sini dalam konsep kita sebagai learner ya, kita memiliki bahasa lain selain bahasa asing. Previously I already mentioned. Pada CA, pada conversation analysis, kita bisa mengetahui perkata apa sih sebenarnya makna dari kata yang diungkapkan oleh penutur tersebut, penutur bahasa asing tersebut. Initially, awalnya penelitian dengan paradigma CA itu diambil dari paradigma ilmu sosial di mana pada saat itu ada satu kasus ya, let's say a kind of customer service or hotline, hotline for certain people, if I'm not mistaken, in UK. So she tried to call this hotline because she feel that somebody will have suicide. Nah, untuk mengidentifikasi apakah benar yang dinyatakan oleh si penelpon tersebut akan melakukan aktivitas dalam tanda kutip bunuh diri, itu dilihat dari perkata. That's why previously I would like to apply conversation analysis. But in this approach, in this, let's say, the design of research approach using CA, we cannot see what we call what is the belief that she or he or the learner or the speaker would produce certain utterances. Itu nggak tahu Pak kalau kita menggunakan CA. That's why I use CDA. Because I would like to find out what is the belief that the producer, yang dimaksud producer di kita ya, kita mbak-mbak, mas-mas, bapak ibu sekalian, pada saat kita memproduksi kata-kata. That's why I call it producers of the words. Now, Mbak Dila, tolong slide berikutnya. Okay, so that's about the concept of linguistic capital that I like to make a draft based on the finding of my research. Now for finding and discussion, Mbak, for next. So I would like to tell a bit about who are actually the community here. So previously I asked the question, siapa sih yang berbahasa Inggris? Oh, yang berbahasa Inggris itu yang punya duit aja misalnya. Atau hanya golongan high class. Is it true? The answer is no. Why? Because they have to use I mean in spoken di sini kita berbicara tentang ragam bahasa bicara ya. They have to use it English for certain reason. Tolong ditampilkan slide berikutnya, Mbak. Nah, di sini satu cuplikan ya tentang penggunaan kata dibantu dengan korpus tadi yang tampak pada high index dengan menggunakan korpus kita bisa mengetahui adalah numbering dan kata sifat want to and difficult. Itu yang sering terjadi pada percakapan di komunitas UMKM tertentu. Kenapa? Nah, ini kita akan mencari tahu lebih dalam kenapa. Kemudian low index di sini masih dalam bentuk kata sifat ya. Kata sifat, kemudian kata kerja, phrase, hook, kemudian call, everyday caregiver. Kenapa sih kok mereka lebih sering mengucapkan kata-kata tersebut? Tolong slide berikutnya, Mbak. Nah, ini salah satu contoh dari corpus based data, tapi kemudian saya gabungkan dengan CDA. Saya menggunakan istilah ibu putih, it means that the woman who wear the white clothes, kemudian so the dialogue between ibu putih and customer. Let's try to have next slide, Mbak, please. Finding and discussion. So this is the example of the discussion in a dialogue. This is very, let's say, simple. Kemudian kalau kita perhatikan ya, the organization, kita mengacu pada communicative competence, kita mengacu pada paradigma pengajaran dengan menggunakan pendekatan komunikatif. What happened actually? I ordered a small size cinnamon, 1 butter, and 1 plate of onion ring. Ini kira-kira bagaimana? Loh, kok begitu? That's fine. This is the fact, right? Faktanya kan memang begini. See, okay, me order 1 at English course. See, at English course. One day, things selling about 10 and 5-10 page. So, let's see. Kata-kata yang sering muncul itu adalah numbering. 1, 2, and so on and so forth. And then 15 page in one day. Seeming pieces. And I hope you can bring me here next week, next Monday, next Sunday, next Monday. So this is a very simple one. Now, kemudian kalau kita melihat dari konsep communicative competence tadi, findingnya ini dalam bentuk apa sebenarnya? That's what we call communication strategies in terms of borrowing. Borrowing means that strategies which is performed by the respondent and it is influenced by the what we call a previous language that he or she actually master. We can say master. It can be the native language, it can be our bahasa. Nah, sebenarnya apa sih yang terjadi pada dialog tersebut? If you see from the point of view of communicative competence, first, the speaker here, let's say in imperfect English. Yes, this is imperfect English. Why? Because from the organization here in textual, in discourse, and in grammatical is not matched. It's true. And then she mentioned again and again 1, 2, 15 number. Why number? That's from one community, right? Now let's try to see from the next slide. Kita melihat contoh dari ujaran-ujaran pada setting yang berbeda. Tolong Mbak Dila, slide berikutnya. Oke, tadi sudah dibahas, borrowing, and then next slide. Jadi si ibu tersebut mencoba menggunakan konsep borrowing pada community competence to make the communication channel open. Nah, so these are the sentences produced in a conference, a non-formal, of course, not in a formal, in a space like this. No, it's very interesting actually. Singapore and Indonesia is very close. Singapore and Indonesia is very close. What happened? Dari kelompok berbeda ya, dari komunitas yang berbeda. Jadi di sini kita melihat beberapa komunitas. If the class trip finished before 11, what staff in Singapore have what Silk Air belong to. So the problem here is at organization competence, grammatical and discourse. Next slide, Mbak. Slide berikutnya. Nah, ini juga utterance dari komunitas yang berbeda. Jadi kita mencoba memotret beberapa ujaran yang dihasilkan di komunitas-komunitas tertentu pada level-level tertentu. Kemudian kita melihat pada perguruan tinggi. This is one of the example actually. I think it's not my last semester because next semester I continue some lesson that I replay. Again, it's borrowing. He tries to keep on talking to make the communication channel open, although he has problem in finding the correct word for expressing his idea. Kita lanjutkan. Nah, dari paparan tersebut, sebenarnya konsepnya bagaimana sih? Tolong slide berikutnya, Mbak. Yang ditemukan pada paparan tersebut, selain borrowing, merupakan salah satu istilah pada communicative competence, ada yang namanya reduction strategies. Reduction strategies ini kenapa sih? Di sini mencakup tentang modality. Modality apa? Pada speech act di situ nggak jelas, Bu, itu apa sih yang dimaksud tindak tuturnya? Iya, Mbak. Iya, Mas. Karena apa? Because the context is not in non-formal situation. Yes, it's true. Nah, prinsipnya kan dia cuma kepingin ngomong aja, kepingin berkomunikasi. That's it. To make the communication channel open. But here, I would like to give a kind of hint. What is the position of English actually in our society? Next slide, please. So this is a kind of linguistic identities in talk and why. Kenapa? Order in multilingual can be found for certain community. Jadi saya menggunakan bahasa Indonesia saja di sini ya. Jadi alternatif bahasa dari perspektif relasi identitas, pilihan bahasa merupakan contoh dari symbolic actions. They try to, let's say, to tell, quote unquote, to the people. Ini loh, saya menggunakan bahasa ini untuk begini-begini. Itu kan pendapat umum, ya ini memang pendapat umum. Now let's try to see. Pilihan bahasa pada subjek multilingual merupakan practical social action atau tindakan sosial praktis di mana pola keteraturan pada percakapan multilingual tersebut bisa terlihat. Terlihatnya bagaimana? Now, do you think that when the dialogue or conversation in certain community, when they say mention 1, 2, 3, they bother about grammar? The answer is no. Kenapa? We come up to the conclusions. It means that we, the speaker, are not actor but agent. Kalau kita mengacu pada istilah linguistic capital ya, because we have what we call the knowledge about this foreign language. Next slide, Mbak. So actually the phenomenon of using English in language community explain that the position of the subject as the individual who has power over the foreign language. Jadi kita itu sebenarnya subjek yang merdeka ya untuk menggunakan bahasa asing tersebut. Kita, I refer to certain group of or community. Why? Because this language, I mean English, function as the economic commodity. Because that's daily life. Karena tercermin pada penggunaan kata-kata yang sering menggunakan number. Jadi hanya sebatas komoditas ekonomi. So that's why kalau disuruh ngomong bahasa Inggris kok banyak numbernya ya. We try to see from their daily life and their function in using this foreign language. Therefore, the user of language do not always have to obey the rule of grammar. Kemudian dari konsep communicative competence, I try to see from the communication strategy for negotiating meaning, for delivering message among their member or peers. Nah, sebenarnya jenis-jenis competence, jenis-jenis strategi competence, or let's say negotiating of meaning, this is a kind of tool for next research, for next investigating linguistic interaction in different cultural setting. Itu kan di masyarakat perkotaan di Surabaya ya. Mungkin bisa diadopsi atau diterapkan kalau di tempat lain bagaimana? I think that's all. For me, it's a pleasure that you can wait until that long. Thank you for the audience. Thank you, Bu Laili. Salam sehat semuanya.
Thank you, Bu Lila, for the broadening presentation. So in sum here, ladies and gentlemen, Bu Lila suggested that English is learned with different goals by people with different backgrounds, socially and culturally, and different places, spaces, and backgrounds of the institution from which people learn English will establish different habitus. It all leads to multilingualism habitus, but however, different environment and milieu of the development of habitus will develop different focus of communicative competence. Yeah. Thank you, Ibu Lila, Pak Jati, and also Bu Kristi. Now we still have some minutes left. Probably there will be some questions. So be my guest. All participants, if you have any question for Pak Kumawang Jati, who is also still here, or Ibu Lila, you are welcome. You could put it in the chat, or probably you could go directly by opening your speaker and then starting to ask. Please, Bapak Ibu, is there any questions? And I see here Pak Kumawang, Pak Jati is also still with us. Bu Lila is also still with us. So I invite all participants to state or present their questions, if any. If everything is clear, then it would be great then. No further questions? Oke, Bapak Muhammad Rifat Firdaus.
Baik, bisa saya bertanya lewat bahasa Indonesia, Bu?
Ya, silakan.
Oke, pertama sebelumnya terima kasih atas kesempatan yang diberikan kepada Ibu Laili. Terima kasih, Bu. Nah, di sini saya ingin mempertanyakan soal, tadi kan dibahas soal bahasa Inggris dan lain sebagainya. Nah, mungkin dari beberapa pemateri bisa menjawab pertanyaan ini, random siapa yang bisa menjawab. Nah, pertanyaan saya adalah, gimana sekarang kedudukan bahasa Inggris sebagai bahasa internasional, yang mana kita tahu menjawab tantangan Industrial 4.0. Mungkin hanya itu. Terima kasih.
Ya, dari Bapak Rifat Firdaus mempertanyakan. Oh ya Mas ya, maaf. Belum ini ya, belum sold out ya Mas ya. Jadi Mas aja. Baik, dari Mas Rifat ini bertanya untuk sekarang ini, saat ini bagaimana kedudukan bahasa Inggris sebagai bahasa internasional di era revolusi industri 4.0. Ini pertanyaan ditujukan kepada siapa saja dari pembicara atau speaker from any speakers who could answer the questions. It could be Pak Jati and also Bu Lila.
Bu Lila duluan.
Oh, okay.
Saya yang muda belakangan.
Ya, betul sekali Pak. Silakan Bu Lila.
Terima kasih Bu Leli. Terima kasih Pak Jati. Terima kasih untuk Mas penanya, Mas Rifat. Kedudukan bahasa Inggris sebagai bahasa internasional, sebagai lingua franca itu sudah sangat jelas ya. Karena memang kalau kita melihat sejarah dari bagaimana bahasa Inggris bisa masuk ke negara kita, it will be a long history. Kemudian pertanyaannya, bagaimana kita menyikapi? Kalau kedudukan sangat jelas ya. Bahasa Inggris merupakan salah satu bahasa internasional yang digunakan di PBB, tapi bukan satu-satunya kan, salah satu bahasa internasional. It's not the only one, right? Kedudukannya sudah sangat jelas. Kemudian sebagai lingua franca, yes. Bahasa teknologi, yes. Kalau kita tanya ke Bu Leli putranya berbahasa Inggris atau berbahasa Jawa kalau di rumah, kalau berkomunikasi dengan Bu Leli? Jawabannya akan Bu Leli.
Saya Inggris.
Nah, jawabannya kan begitu. Sudah jelas kan? Kenapa? Kenapa? Let's try to see from the exposure dari pajanan teknologi menggunakan bahasa Inggris. Mem, Kak model, mem nggak bisa bahasa Inggris. Yes, it's true. Tapi yang perlu kita garis bawahi ya, tadi sudah dikemukakan oleh Kristi, be yourself. Meskipun kita memang berbahasa Inggris, tapi tetap kita harus tahu siapa diri kita sebenarnya, siapa gaya diri kita siapa. You know what I mean? Because the concept of learning, if we try to check, this is something like say give advantages. Saya tidak mengatakan, oh nggak usah bahasa Inggris deh kata Bu Lila. No, multilingual people is more diligent compared to monolingual ones. Beberapa penelitian sudah menyebutkan ya, untuk mereka yang berbahasa lebih dari satu, itu sebenarnya lebih smart. Kita semua lebih smart ya, because we have more than one language, right? Kita akan berbahasa daerah kita, mother tongue, kemudian berbahasa Indonesia. If we, let's say, you can ask Kristi. Kristi bisa berbahasa, let's say, bahasa apa aja Kristi yang bisa ditanyakan. Atau kita tanya Pak Jati. Pak Jati bisa berapa bahasa?
Saya bahasanya satu, bahasa Indonesia.
No, bahasa daerah?
Yeah, I speak bahasa Jawa, bahasa Sunda a little bit, Vietnamese a little bit, and German a little bit. Bahasa Inggris masih belajar.
Yes. Saya juga kita semua masih belajar Pak, kita semua pembelajar. Intinya begini, kalau kita membahas tentang konsep multilingual, bilingual, pada referensi sebelumnya bilingual ya, konsep bilingual, tapi sekarang mengacu ke multilingual. Kenapa? Karena mengacu pada kondisi masyarakat. Tapi kalau individu tadi sudah disebut dengan plurilingualism. Jadi ada perbedaan konsep pada era sebelum 90 dan setelah 90, 2000-an ya, sudah agak terbaru ya. Kita tidak menyebut lagi bilingual untuk mengacu pada individu, tapi plurilingual. Itu kalau kita mengacu pada individu dan sekelompok masyarakat. Tapi kalau kita mengacu pada posisi bahasa Inggris tetap menjadi salah satu bahasa internasional dan bahasa yang digunakan di United Nations, di PBB, kemudian bahasa yang digunakan untuk generasi milenial kita. Mereka begitu lahir sudah mengenal gawe ya, gawe kan YouTube dan macam-macam game, macam-macam permainan. Kemudian digunakan oleh beberapa komunitas di masyarakat perkotaan sebagai apa? Sebagai alat komoditas yang bersifat ekonomis. Karena mereka mempunyai tujuan tertentu menggunakan bahasa Inggris. Dan bahkan di satu grup tertentu, satu komunitas tertentu, mereka menggunakan bahasa tersebut sebagai alat tukar. Alat tukar atau komoditas yang diperdagangkan, diperjualbelikan. Begitu ya. Mudah-mudahan bisa menjawab tadi pertanyaannya.
Oke, terima kasih Bu Lila. Pak Jati?
Ya, saya akan mencoba untuk memberikan perspektif yang lain dan membuat sedikit lebih bingung gitu kira-kira. Karena perkembangan bahasa, like learning space dengan zamannya internet. Karena tadi pertanyaannya dihubungkan dengan 4.0. Mungkin kita perlu 4.0 itu apa? 4.0 it's not in the education sector, tapi disorotin lebih dari industri. Itu yang harus kita pegang ya. Lahirnya dari sana. Kenapa disebut 4.0? Itu karena ada M to M. M itu artinya mesin. Mesin talking to mesin without human gitu ya. Lalu ada machine learning. Mesinnya itu kursus belajar. Jadi pinter dia. Dengan lahirnya artificial intelligence, AI. Lalu itu disebutlah industri 4.0 gitu. Nah, pertanyaannya kaitannya dengan bahasa Inggris seperti apa? Ya. English is still international language, it's still being used in 4.0. Tapi, ada tapinya. Karena mesin ini bisa saling ngobrol, maka bahasa tidak menjadi kendala bagi siapapun yang menggunakan mesin. Karena si mesin akan membantu dengan adanya mesin translator in any language. Gitu ya. Mesin bisa nggak ngajarin belajar bahasa? Bisa. Sempurna seperti ngajarin manusia tidak? No, it's not like human teaching, of course, but they can teach you. If you want to learn, I can show you an example of mesin-to-mesin communication. Bapak memasukkan mesin di dalam teks, gitu ya. Terus nanti minta esainya diskor sama mesin. Bisa nggak? Bisa. Dan ngasih inputnya detail nggak? Detail banget. You use this many word, this is your argument is not strong, blah, 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 and so on. You can try it. I put it in my chat supaya sepertinya harus tak masukkan di sana. To give illustration, but still English and this machine to machine later on, of course, will be adopted by other languages di dalam bahasa Indonesia dan segala macam. Sorry, salah itunya. Salah apanya linknya sebentar ya. My connection is not very good. Mungkin sudah pernah dengar it's, dan hebatnya lagi adalah this is free. So if you want to learn writing, there is a virtual writing tutor. Nanti sambil direnungkan seperti apa. That's a space for learning yang kita bahas tadi. It's not in the classroom. It's out there. Tadi saya masih bicara out there doing by human gitu kan. Karena Pak Rifat ngomong 4.0, maka sekarang tidak hanya human out there become a tutor or a teacher, ada mesin gitu. Ya kan? Nanti perkembangannya, kalau kita balik lagi ke language, then is English very important? Yes. How important? Maybe it's not that important anymore because there are a lot of translator. If you use a translator from your mobile phone, Anda ke Thailand, di situ ada bahasa Thai, di sini ada bahasa Indonesia, diklik aja. Then you speak in bahasa Indonesia, yang keluar dari handphonenya nanti bahasa Thailand. Orang Thailand yang ngomong, kita dengarnya bahasa Indonesia. Ngapain belajar bahasa Inggris? Kan gitu kan? Nah, that's become another question. Still important? Yes, karena politis urusannya, gitu kan? But whether that's going to be used, that's another problem. That's what I can say. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Jati. Okay, so in sum, yeah, we could say that in the future, English probably not as important as it is now, but it will still be important anyway. And one more question, and then I think that this would be the last one from Pak Gufron. Itu bertanya, apakah dengan kondisi semua sektor seperti ini, apakah menurut Bapak Ibu akan ada kemungkinan bahasa Inggris akan menjadi bahasa kedua atau terangkat statusnya menjadi bahasa resmi? Nah, ini mungkin tergantung pemerintah juga ya, tapi mungkin ada insight dari Pak Jati atau Bu Lila. Silahkan Bapak Ibu.
Ya, saya pendek saja memberikan ilustrasi saja ya. Language is always with politics, sangat kental, itu yang harus kita ingat. Kalau saya bertanya, bahasa nasionalnya Singapura apa? Ayo, ada yang tahu?
Malay.
Malay.
Yeah, Malay.
But everyone speak English, all the document in English, the school are run in English, walaupun di sana ada Mandarin yang kedua dan segala macam. Ya, so that's the case. So it's always related with pride, political, lalu ditentukan dan seterusnya. Ya, kalau pertanyaannya apakah bahasa Inggris akan menjadi bahasa kedua? Maybe akan menjadi bahasa sehari-hari, maybe like in Singapore. But if you ask what's your national language, still Malay. All the document, legal document, everything in English. Yeah, so think about it. Yeah, thank you.
Lila, any further explanation?
Sepertinya sepakat dengan Pak Jati ya, dari kondisi di sekitar kita, semua dokumen dalam bahasa nasional kita, and kalau kita merubah satu policy, I don't think that it will take a very short time, because as I mentioned, language is the identity. Gitu ya. Terima kasih, Bu Laili.
Ya, terima kasih Bu Lila, Pak Jati, and ladies and gentlemen, semua Bapak Ibu, terima kasih sudah bersama kami sampai pukul 12.05. Now we come to the end of the today's seminar, which is very enlightening. On behalf of the committee in Magister Linguistic Program, we would like to extend our deepest appreciation to all speakers and also all participants and all the committee. Thank you all. We do hope that our today's seminar would enlighten us in many aspects, in many ways. And we do hope that it would also contribute to the better future of our education. Thank you all. Again, Pak Gumawang, Jati, Bu Lila, and also Christine, and all Bapak Ibu from all over Indonesia. I see there are a lot of people from Manado and Toli-Toli. And again, thank you very much. And wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We wish you all safe and healthy. Please, please wait for our further communication concerning the e-certificate and also the record, the link of the record of today's seminar. And please also refer to our YouTube too, because our today's seminar will also be uploaded in our official website. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih Pak Jati.
Terima kasih Bu Laili. Terima kasih Pak Jati.
Terima kasih Pak Jati, Bu Lila.